Hey guys, this is Kendra.
This is Jessica, and you're listening to
Lucid Lab.
I'm excited this week. Kendra is going to be bringing us a story, and it's a new topic, little green men.
We are, yes.
Yay.
UFOs, abductions, all that fun stuff. I honestly have not looked into UFOs very much.
Yeah.
I've always been like fascinated with them, but I haven't spent a lot of time in the ufology.
Ufology.
Yeah, I learned that word.
Sounds like urology.
Quite different.
I know.
Yeah, so ufology is, I guess, a big thing, and there's conferences all over the world, and
Yeah.
I learned a lot about that.
Yeah, and right before we started, I guess I'll mention it, she was trying to look up this statistic, and I'm like, you can't look that up because there's so much hidden. Last week I was on the CIA website trying to find some dirt.
We're getting deep into the conspiracies now.
Because if you go to like their backlog, they start to release like documents from like the 50s and the 60s and now like within the last couple years, so you can go check it out and just see what you can find.
Now that sounds like something I could be doing
I
at
need
like
more
2
time.
o'clock in the morning when I should be sleeping.
Exactly.
I was looking up statistics because I was just curious how many like reports there are annually. But what I did find out when I was researching this is UFOs are something that people don't honestly want to admit to seeing. Is it fear? Like they don't want to admit that there's more out there, but there is some major stigma around UFOs, even more than I think anything else we've talked about on this show so far.
I'm happy to even offer some crazy other theories that are out there because they make you think. I don't mind questioning every single thing about our existence. And if I am going to look at something in the sky and both me and my daughter are like, that's weird, and I'm going to be like, there's a chance that that was a UFO sighting.
There's so many things out there that are not explained by like how our, airplanes fly or even our satellites or anything that, unless, our government is doing some really crazy top secret shit.
Seriously.
Like
ancient alien stuff.
There's
Have
some
you
stuff.
ever stared at all of the intricacy inside a rocket ship?
No.
So I went down to Florida to the Kennedy Space Center a long time ago. And I just remember standing there because they had like a section of the rocket kind of opened up to see. And there are millions of connections. And I'm like, what? How the fuck did you guys put all this together and then make it fly? Like, I don't think any of us are that smart.
Well, there are all the conspiracy theories that like even microwaves and some of these newer technologies. Well, I guess that's not new. That's from like the 50s. But a lot of those, they think when we had these big leaps in technology that it came from aliens
but there's also this crazy theory that we haven't been to space. Actually, have you heard that?
I've heard that. And it would have to be something that's like faked by the entire world because like China has people there and Russia.
Here's the theory.
Okay,
you're going to be talking about sightings that people are having here on Earth, so this really doesn't debunk what it is, but there's a theory because what is the name for the little green men that we use?
Extraterrestrials or aliens,
right? Terrestrials is interesting because that is technically from the word terra, and terra means
earth.
So the theory is that past Antarctica, because nobody can go to Antarctica unless it's government approved or it's part of something like that, that after Antarctica there is more land and there is a lot of stuff underground in Antarctica, including this extraterrestrial race. Because back in the 60s, I believe, or maybe, I don't know if it's the 60s. You'd actually have to go look it up. I should have. I was watching this documentary on it. There is a man who led expeditions to Antarctica and came back talking about the extra land that was there. And he mysteriously died upon giving all of his information upon his discoveries there. Within a year, NASA was formed. And in that same year, all countries signed a treaty that only government was allowed to go to Antarctica.
Okay.
So just putting it out there.
And we're going to go into this because, once again, I feel like the last few episodes we keep getting into these controversial cases. But what I'm doing today about the UFO abduction has a lot of controversy around it, too. Yeah. Is it real? Is it a hoax? And I think that comes up on any UFO
It doesn't mean that these extraterrestrials in Antarctica or wherever can't fly and do all the things that we know aliens to do.
Yep.
It's just that they're not from out of our world. They're from our world.
I could talk about this all day because I'm also watching on Netflix right now. It's called Ancient Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. And it's about, you know, these lost civilizations. Yep. And it was just so interesting. And I only got through the first 3 episodes and I'll finish it. But they found civilizations that existed before the Ice Age. Like, oh yeah, we just don't know what we don't know. Like,
no, I think that was my like initial just pull to like just studying anthropology in school.
Makes sense.
Yes, it is a biased way of learning information about other cultures as well. But I felt like I was really closed-minded growing up. Not in the way that I didn't accept other people, but I just needed to know more. I felt like I've always been just in my tiny little space, and I knew that I needed to understand and appreciate people and plants and animals and the earth in a way that I couldn't do. You know, you're really limited growing up to what you're exposed to. But anthropology drew me in because I'm like, I just want to learn as much as I can.
And I think what's so interesting too is you want to learn about people who are completely different.
Exactly.
Than, you know, I think that's what pushes me to travel, because I always want to learn about other cultures and how, because we only know what we were taught in our, you know, U.S. schools, and I don't know that I fully trust.
No, I don't trust any of it.
I don't
trust most of the history that they give.
And we want to always look like we're the good guys from the U.S. and that's not always
we
the
suck.
truth.
So also something else about us and the trajectory of how things are going. And I actually connected this. It took me a while to realize that this was maybe the catalyst for my spiritual awakening.
Oh,
was the Roe v. Wade.
Oh my God, that day was so sad.
I can't even describe the state of being that I was in when that happened, because for me, it was the first time I felt a true injustice.
Just for our gender.
Sex.
Right.
And of course, and then I'm sitting there and I'm watching all the men in my life I have love for and everything else. They're just not grasping.
They don't understand it because
the severity and the seriousness of what just happened.
Us being forced to do something that
I even got laughed at for still being sad one day. And I'm just like, my God. Like, what if someone said, well, if you do this, your penis is gonna get chopped off.
Right.
Like, I don't know how else they can't
grasp it because it's so easy for a man to walk away. Mm-hmm. Once a woman has a child, we don't have that choice. And even if we don't want to raise that child, our bodies have to go through the trauma of pregnancy. And I don't want to like polarize anyone that's listening that, you know, may for whatever reason be against abortion. I think that here's what I want to make sure everybody understands. What I am is I want a woman to be able to make the decisions that are right for her body with her doctor without the government telling her she has to make a certain decision. That's what it is. It's not I want everyone to just go out and have abortions.
It is an extremely personal decision, and it's no one else's fucking business.
Right.
They drafted a bill that they're trying to get passed in South Carolina that would make it so if you have an abortion, and it's very, very fucking vague when it comes to even miscarriages, would make it equal to a homicide.
What the fuck?
Which would be punishable by any means of the law down there, which includes the death penalty.
This should scare everyone, men and women, because just think about it. Somebody could say a woman who had a miscarriage actually caused herself to have, like she did it on purpose. I mean, falling down the stairs. And people could
she
do
has
that.
A miscarriage. What are they going to start doing? Going after your diet, and your diet's what caused you to have a miscarriage.
You didn't take enough prenatal vitamins.
What about the women who don't have access to the healthcare that would actually be able to help them get to term? If they wanted the baby, get to term successfully because their health is not great otherwise. Yes. We're in very muddy fucking waters. And a woman who has to have an abortion, she already has 5 children, and your answer is to jail her and possibly look at the death penalty when she has 5 other children at home.
Right.
Like, who the fuck are we right now?
And then, there's the woman in Texas, and this one broke my heart. She was in her 30s, and she, was having a baby with her husband, and they told her that the baby was not going to be viable. When the baby was born, it would only live like a day because so she wanted to abort the baby, but they said, no, the baby still has a heartbeat. And so she carried this baby, and it basically was turning into like a necrotic situation, but still had a heartbeat. So the doctors were afraid to do anything. And then her body went into sepsis.
Oh my gosh.
Because her body wouldn't naturally miscarry it like it needed to. But now she's suing the state of Texas because her body is scarred and she may not be able to have children. And this is a woman who did everything right. She's just trying to have a baby. And because of these new laws, she got completely screwed over. It's not, and we're going to hear more stories like this. Women are going to die.
Women have died.
They are dying.
When they also start to stop you from being able to have access to
Plan B.
And if you think I'm being too woke right now, just keep it to your fucking self. I don't know.
Maybe
know what
this
to
isn't
say.
the podcast for you. I don't know.
Because our point is to talk about certain topics. We are never going to get into massive politics, healthcare, stuff like that. But we're literally talking about...
This is a human rights discussion.
Yeah, and we're talking about one of the 2 main genders here of this situation. And this is just going back. Everybody has an opinion on that. And I know we have like a lot of support from women in other countries that are looking at us right now. And they're just like, oh my God.
Yeah. I just feel like we're going backwards in America right now.
Some of the other things that they're trying to pass is even crazy. Like
no
not
contest
even crazier, but
no contest divorce is up. They're talking about taking away contraception in general. Like,
oh my God.
We could go on, and I'm sorry, we're not a politics, but it is scary, and
I have a daughter.
It weighs on us
what
every
does
day.
Her future look like here in several years? Thankfully we do live in Colorado right now, but that can change at any moment with any change in our fucking government here.
Yes.
But just going back, after Roe v. Wade happened, I was just in a state. I was not with my daughter that day. It's the first time without her, 4th of July. And I'm like, I just need to walk because walking is my happy place. Yeah. And I went to a lake that I like to walk around. And yes, it was night.
Always.
And all around me on this lake in 6 different locations was nothing but fireworks from all the cities that I could see to the south. Not beautiful, Kendra.
No, you don't
was
like fireworks.
Pissed. You don't understand how mad I was that day. We're just going about life and celebrating our Constitution and everything else when women's rights were being taken away from us. I was pissed that day. And I wanted to take a walk to get away from the celebration that everybody was like, we just lost our rights, but let's go fucking do fireworks and have hot dogs. And I was really mad that day.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Like, I love fireworks, but you're right. Not the time.
It was not the time. And so I felt very alone that day. Very, very alone. And my awakening happened the next morning. And I never tied it back to that until recently. And I don't know why I never thought of that. That's what kind of was like the last thing, because I think I got to this emotional point that I'd actually never been in my life. So anyway, I want to tell you something really, really funny. Let's leave that alone.
Yeah, let's get away from our impassioned
I think in the first episode, I told you that I didn't know what woo was in the beginning. And now it's like, get woo, baby, get woo.
Now we're all about woo.
And so somebody asked me recently and they're like, and it was cute. They're like, what does woo actually mean? I'm like, I wasn't the only one.
Oh, really?
So I'm like trying to explain it because it's really more of this.
How do you? Yeah, how would you define
it? It's a state
it?
Expansion. It's like a self-expansion. But I was like, let me give this to them in another way. And maybe on Urban Dictionary, there's like some kind of way. So I went to go look in Urban Dictionary and it's not there, but I found one that was really funny. Yes. And now we're going to have to say woo a lot because I need to get this definition out of my brain.
Okay.
Because it says, when you sit down to have a wee and go poo instead. And so woo. And now every time I say woo or think of woo, I'm like, God damn it. No. So
that is not what we mean. Let me look up another definition for it.
Okay, good.
So I'm looking it up, and I guess some people call it woo-woo, like being woo-woo. And it says to be outlandishly mystical, supernatural, or unscientific.
No. It's growth in a spiritual kind of open way, right? And you're actually actively seeking it out.
It also, I found this one, it says unconventional beliefs. especially those relating to spirituality.
Yeah,
so that
I
might
mean,
be
I think
closer.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we mean it in a very positive way.
Yes.
Because we actually do research all of these topics. And the more I research all of this and like think about these questions, it makes me, gravitate more towards woo.
Get woo.
Get woo.
Prior to my walking that has been happening over the last couple of years, I was a recluse because I worked 80 hours a week and never left the house. And
that's no way to live.
But I've actually have this thing. I've had this allergy reaction since I was a child, actually. And I'm allergic to the sun. So I'm an actual vampire.
Yeah, I could see that.
I can't.
Minus the drinking the blood.
You don't know what I do in my downtime. I'm just kidding.
It's good protein, I hear.
But I get immediate hives. It just this raised, itchy, red, just pissed off skin. It takes but a couple minutes. In the Denver sun, this is a sunny state. I could walk from building to building downtown Denver campus and I'd be covered in them. And so sunscreen does help, but I don't want to wear sunscreen.
No.
Something magical, though, happened last year after my spiritual awakening. I stopped having my reactions.
Whoa.
And so I took that as a massive sign. But since we've been through winter and now I can start walking again, guess what's returned?
Oh,
and
that's
so
such a bummer.
Now I'm like, fine, it wasn't God. Maybe I was able to get away with it last year because of how much I walked, even with the sunscreen in the beginning, that maybe I am, like, it requires me building up a certain amount of tolerance first before I don't need it. So this is my true test this summer because I can't live my summer in hives. I have to be outside.
I just looked up. It's like, how do you fix a sun allergy? And it says avoid sun exposure.
Oh, fuck that.
That's not fucking helpful. Thanks.
Okay, my rant's over for today. Are you taking us anywhere yet? Or
well, I want to go ahead and start talking about UFOs and little green men.
Let's do it.
Actually, they're not little green men. They're more little gray men.
I think it's funny, too, because we have this idea of what aliens look like. But really, it's just a million different species in my mind, right? That anything could be this alien. And so are we really only saying if we're going to that we're going to let?
Well, maybe the one that visits Earth is like one species that's actually interested in us. That's a possibility.
I have a hard time believing that only one species would come to our planet.
I mean, the universe is massive, and we're probably not that important in the scheme of it all.
I know, we need to stop thinking that we're like important.
We're like a little thing of ants. We're like an ant farm to some of these other species, maybe.
But now that we're all fired up, Kendra, what's our topic?
We are really fired up. It's funny that you say that because the title of the episode is Fire in the Sky.
Nice.
A lot of you may be familiar with this movie. It was called Fire in the Sky, and I watched it probably in like 2000. It came out in 1993.
1993, wow.
You were a baby.
That doesn't matter. You know how many movies I've watched?
I know.
I it's not ringing a bell to me. And I love alien movies, thriller movies, like apocalypse movies.
We're going to have a movie night and watch this movie because I haven't watched it in 23 years. I watched it back in 2000. Sure. Yeah. I got to find out where it is.
Okay.
Fire in the Sky was based on one of the most famous UFO abduction stories out there, and that is the Travis Walton story. And he wrote a book called The Walton Experience, which is what that movie was based on.
Oh, okay.
When I watched the movie, I remember it saying it was based on true events, but I had never really looked at it because a lot of movies are based on true events, but then it's embellished.
Yep.
But when we started doing this podcast, I'm like, this is my opportunity to really find out what actually happened. Yeah. Because the movie was embellished, and Travis Walton will say that himself. You know, they added in some scary effects because it was a really creepy movie. Like if you watch it, if you go into it thinking it's fully true, like you would be running the opposite direction anytime you saw any kind of UFO. So I want to get into it. I don't want to go into too much about the movie other than that's what got me into this. I think this is going to be a fun episode after some heavier ones that we've had because we get to talk about little gray men and some drama among these guys, which is kind of comical in a way.
My alien. No, your alien. Not my alien.
Yeah, you know, money gets involved and people get real funny. So
people get real funny.
And this tale begins in a very small town in Arizona. So there's a lot of small town, you know, politics involved. It's always in a small town. But it kind of makes sense because this small town is called Snowflake, Arizona. You know Snowflake?
Yes, I do. I have tons of family in Snowflake, the White Mountain area. I have tons of family in Snowflake.
Well, that makes sense, actually, because...
Maybe my family is part of this list. Maybe you're going to read a family member's name.
I can't wait. This is going to be really interesting. Damn. And you don't know this story.
And we have listeners in Arizona.
Hey, Arizona. And it's funny because when I was telling Jessica about the story, she had never seen the movie and she'd never heard about it. So this is all new to her.
Yes, I know Snowflake. I've been there a lot.
And even though this is the most... Well, it's not the most famous, but it's one of the highest known abduction stories. It happened in 1975, so a lot of the newer
70s.
Listeners, and it's always the 70s.
I feel like we're going back into the 70s right now.
So Snowflake, Arizona, you say that you have family there, and I wanted to bring up that it is the northernmost community in the White Mountains of Arizona. So it's about an hour away from the Grand Canyon. And although the name is Snowflake, why would you think it's named Snowflake?
Well, it does snow in the White Mountain area, so
that's what I would think too. So they only receive about 17 inches of snow per year, which isn't that much for being in the mountains. It was actually established by 2 Mormon apostles.
My God, we are just like constantly bringing them in everywhere.
And this is why your family is there.
And none of these stories that we've chosen
we're
supposed to have any connection whatsoever.
It's because we're out in the West.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of history in the early Mormon times were in Arizona. Yeah.
So these 2 apostles founded Snowflake, Arizona in 1878, and their names were Erastus Snow.
I'm sorry, that's a cool name.
Erastus.
Erastus Snow. What is this fucking Game of
Jon
Thrones?
Snow. And then William Flake. Flake's not as cool of a last name, but so they took their 2 names, and that's how it became Snowflake.
Okay, that's better than the Stanley shit.
You think?
Well, it was just their last names. They're like, that mountain's mine. This area is mine. And these 2 dudes are like, we have cool fucking last names. Let's stick them together.
And they're like, it makes Snowflake. It's exactly. Like they were meant to be. And they came out here, started this settlement, and it's still a large Mormon community today. Actually, it's not very large. It's only really 6,000 people.
I don't think a lot of my family in that area is Mormon because we go to Snowflake and White Mountain, Arizona area for family reunions.
Oh, okay.
We do this huge camping trip, all our family.
Wow.
And a lot of them live over there.
I can't believe you haven't heard this story.
Yeah, I can't believe it either.
You're probably camping right where it happened.
It's quite possible.
Snowflake is at an elevation of 5,600 feet, so it's actually, pretty high up. And it's about 30 minutes away from the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest, which is actually where our story will take place.
Okay.
The Apache Sitgreaves National Forest is the largest stretch of ponderosa pines in the world.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's, when I think of Arizona, and I think, listeners who maybe have not been to Arizona, you think of like desert.
Yeah.
But there's a large part of Arizona that's up in the mountains, and it starts kind of at the Grand Canyon and goes up into the northern part and then into New Mexico, Colorado. Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of forest there that is untouched. And when I was researching this, it sounds like this area and this small town has seen UFOs for years, and they continue to cite them in that area today. So,
okay, cousins.
Yeah.
If you've seen aliens in Snowflake or in the White Mountain area, please let me know.
Just going through the story, you realize why people don't want to get notoriety for this.
A kook.
Yeah, that's what you're known for your whole life, and it never leaves you, and we'll talk about that.
I think this one-to-one here, I feel like a lot of that hopefully is changing. I feel like I have certain discussions and can talk about certain topics that maybe would have been more taboo.
Yeah.
Even like 10 years ago.
Our minds are more open, and then the internet, just the fact that people can corroborate stories easier now.
Exactly.
And don't feel like isolated, especially like
in places like TikTok, where we can see people from other countries and actually see what the fuck's going on.
And think about this, in the 1970s, Snowflake, Arizona had a town of less than 2,000 people living there.
All my family. Just kidding.
Jessica's family. Well, Frost does fit in with Snow and Flake.
Yeah, it does.
So this is a town where everybody knows everyone, gossip. This is not a place where you can hide easily.
Okay, this is the last time I'm going to call out my family. If you know any of the people that she's going to talk about, I want to know.
I compare this, I grew up in a very small town, I thought, in Texas, but my town was like 14,000 people, and I couldn't go to the Walmart or the grocery store without running into somebody I know. So I can't imagine a town that's 2,000 people. Like
you're just always going to know somebody.
Yeah, you know everyone. And the biggest industry for Snowflake, Arizona, and I think it is still today, is paper mills, because they're right there in the forest. This all feeds into the story because we're going to have a crew of 7 men that were working in the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. It is, like I said, a very dense forest, and they were hired for a government contract there called the Turkey Springs Tree Thinning Contract. So their job was to go into approximately 1,277 acres and thin out the weaker trees, the smaller trees, to allow the other trees to grow larger, and then also for fire mitigation.
Okay.
So that's what they were doing day in and day out. They're anywhere in age from 17 up to the crew boss, who was 28 years old.
So a young crew.
A young crew.
Wow.
The 1970s. I have some pictures that I will post. I have a lot of pictures for this, so it'll probably be a couple of posts.
Nice.
So their boss was the 28-year-old, and his name was Mike Rogers. He'd been in the business long enough to learn how to bid to get government contracts. He had learned the hard way. Sometimes if you don't bid right, then you end up paying more than you actually make.
Yes.
And this was a really hard industry to find workers for. This is not an easy job. You're out there cutting trees. You're piling all these limbs up after you cut them down.
Probably getting hurt quite often.
Yeah, it's pretty dangerous.
Yeah.
You're out in the middle of nowhere. You have to drive a long ways to get to your job site every day and back.
In the sun. That's one thing, though. Even though there can be some cold winters and stuff there, the summers are intense, even in the mountains.
They had this contract. It was coming to a close. So when our story happens, the big incident day was November 5th of 1975. Okay. And their contract was coming up. They had 5 days left on it to meet their deadline, because when you bid on a government contract, you have to say, I will complete this much work by this date.
Yep.
And a lot of speculation is out there that they were not going to meet their date of November 10th. And so typically the guys would be out there until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They would get there early, right at first light, and work until about 4 p.m. And the day of this incident, they ended up staying a couple of extra hours until it got dark, because they were trying to get as much done. Right. Because if you don't meet your deadline, when you have a government contract, they start docking the pay that they were going to give you.
You're
so if you get an extension,
one tree.
Right, exactly. Like, as you can imagine, the government's probably pretty strict.
Yeah.
It was said that this contract that Mike Rogers got for Turkey Springs was the best contract profit-wise he had ever had. So he was very excited about this, and it paid the highest acre price. I guess they pay by the acre. So he was struggling to find big enough crews to complete all of the work that he wanted to do, like I said, by November 10th. And so this day on November 5th, it was a group of 7 men that he had gathered together. So Mike Rogers as the crew captain, and then his very close friend, Travis Walton, who is the abductee of this story. He was close friends with Mike. He had been one of his longest crew members. He'd worked with Mike off and on for about 6 years. He was actually dating Mike's sister, Dana, so they were connected that way as well. Mike, being the crew chief, also was the main driver. So these 7 guys would all pile into one truck every day to drive into the job site.
Yeah.
And they all lived in the Snowflake, Arizona area. And to get from Snowflake to the Turkey Springs site was about an hour to an hour and a half drive. So about 45 miles. And these are desolate roads. These are not nice highways or anything like that. Once you get into the forest, you're driving over like roads that were made just for loggers.
Right.
So the other 5 men that joined Mike and Travis were Kenny Peterson, and he was 25 years old, and he was also good friends with Mike Rogers. They had known each other since grade school. Steve Pierce was on the team, and he was the youngest. He was 17 years old, and it sounds like he was kind of the haphazard one. He talks about like he had to smoke pot before he went to work every morning. He was, he was the youngest member of the crew. He sounds kind of like the braggart.
A lot of people know.
He was a high school dropout, and he didn't really want to be doing this job, but he was living with his mom, and his mom's like, you're going to fucking go to work. Job. So he had wanted to quit logging for a while, and he actually said the day of the incident, like he didn't want to go to work, and his mom kind of like said, get the fuck out of bed.
Smoke your weed and go to work.
So he did. He also had a little bit of, and this will play out for their whole relationship because they're all like in their 60s, 70s now.
Wow.
He bragged about getting a touchdown with Dana Rogers, who is...
What's a touchdown?
Well, apparently he got a touchdown with her on the local high school football field.
That's sex, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
He tagged that.
I'm sorry, okay? At one point in
Let
high
me
school.
spell it out for you, Jessica.
At one point in high school, I homeschooled myself.
So you don't know all the...
No, it just took me a minute. Was it on the 69 line?
You were a later bloomer. You were a late bloomer.
Touchdown.
So he's like, I don't know if he actually did. I think he really did it. A bunch of dudes working together, like the egos are coming out.
Oh
and
my
I think
God.
they just like to rib each other. So
I had an experience with that last night. Fucking men.
men. I love my man that I love, but
That's good.
a lot of men get really
I
funny.
think when some of them get together, it's just like, are you actually real with that person? Or it's just like this bro fest of look at my stuff. Look at my stuff. Look at my stuff.
So some of that shit was going on
Yeah.
in this group of guys. And I'm going to have
Oh
all
my
kinds of stories as I
gosh.
get older too. So as you can imagine, because Steve Pierce liked to, tell Travis that he was getting touchdowns with his girlfriend, Travis and him were not besties. And so...
It wasn't investigated.
No.
Okay.
There was no proof. Yeah, Steve was the youngest kid on the crew. He was 17 and, he's trying to impress everyone, I think. And Travis
For
was
sure.
22. So he wanted
Yeah.
to be like, yeah, I got it on with your girlfriend because she's an older girl, but she likes this 17-year-old boy. So whatever.
Some girls do.
Maybe it happened. Who knows? So that was Steve. And he's a real interesting guy. You'll hear about him a little bit more. And then the other three guys, one was John Goulet. And he was also connected to Mike Rogers, the crew boss, because John Goulet had a lot of sisters
Oh.
that the guys all seemed to want to
and
date.
then touchdown.
Well,
Just kidding.
it gets real confusing because
Okay.
Travis is married to Mike's sister,
Okay.
but Mike then married John's sister.
This is after all this.
yeah,
right?
after
Okay.
all of this,
Okay.
but they're all connected because small town.
Right.
And then John Goulet had a couple of other sisters and the guys dated his sisters. And it was even when I was reading about this, it sounds like a bunch of them even maybe lived together at some point because they weren't making a ton of money and a small town and they were sharing.
And the
a
dudes
house
are like,
and
well, you
driving
have
together.
some sisters.
And so when that happens, it happens.
Jeez. Okay.
And then the other two members, one, his name was Dwayne Smith, and he was the newest member of the crew. Nobody really knew him very well. And he had been brought up by John Goulet from Phoenix because they needed some extra help. And this guy was 6'6". He was a big
boy.
dude.
Yeah.
He was hired because of his size, I think. They
He
needed
could reach
like
the
some
other
brawn.
branches.
And Steve Pierce, the jokester 17-year-old, liked to refer to him as Herman Munster.
Who's Herman Munster?
Oh my God, you don't know the Munsters?
Are you talking about Addams Family?
No, the Munsters. It was a whole other show that came out around the same time as the Addams Family. I used to watch them. I think it was on Nick at Night, if you even know what that is.
I have one of
it
six
was
kids. We had one TV. I don't know who was using it at the time.
So the Munsters came out around the same time as the Addams Family, and it was about a family of monsters, and the main dad was a Frankenstein that was really tall, and he had like a green, just typical Frankenstein
Maybe I
look
just
to
didn't
him.
want to watch that. I do remember the Dinosaur Family.
That was like in the 80s. So the Munsters was probably like
Oh.
in the 60s, early 70s.
Well, then that would explain why.
Yeah, I watched it. When I watched it, it was in black and white, and it was like old for me in the 80s.
So that's why it was Nick at Night.
Yeah,
They're like,
exactly.
Oh, let's put this on. Gotcha.
So I'll put a picture of Herman Munster.
Okay.
And I'll put it next to Dwayne Smith, and you guys can see.
I think very slightly you'll start to notice just the teeny bit of difference between our ages.
Yeah,
But
it's
there's
not
not
that
a big
much. It's only
one.
like 5 years, but
It's also just probably based on like what our parents
we were exposed to.
introduced us to
Yeah.
growing up.
And so the last member of the crew, his name was Alan Dallas, and he's probably the most controversial one. He sounds like
name like Dallas. I mean,
he sounds like he was quite the
football player.
No, he was like the troublemaker.
Just trying to keep tying back football into this.
I don't think he hooked up with any of the sisters that I read. Oh no, actually he did marry one of John's sisters. I should have read the notes or ahead of time.
He hooked up with her, but then he married her.
He married her, so it's okay. Alan Dallas was kind of the hothead, I guess, in the group, and he had been in fist fights with almost every guy on the crew. And Mike Rogers tells a story about him chasing Alan Dallas down about 2 weeks before the incident occurred because Alan Dallas came over to visit Mike and stole some car parts, and then Mike chased him down, and then he was like, give me the car parts back. And Alan,
they must have been small car parts.
They were like headers for, I don't know anything about cars, but they were headers for some sports car or something. And he chased Alan down, and they got in a big fist fight and all of that. So this is a group of guys who work together because they need money, but they're not like tight friends or anything.
Okay.
But they all ride together in this one truck, and it was called an International Crew Cab. And I'm going to put a picture of this up.
I want to see it.
And they described it in 1975 as being old. So it's probably like a 60s version. And it was a, crew cab truck. And then they had like wood boards along the back to hold all their stuff in. Okay. So it was a very crowded spot. And they would sit 3 up front and 4 in the back and drive an hour and a half each way. Yeah, seatbelts were not a thing back then. So they were like all crammed in. So we're going to go into the morning of, it was a Wednesday, November 5th, 1975. For the 7 men working in the Sitgreaves National Forest, it was just another work day. There was nothing in that sunny fall morning to foreshadow the tremendous fear, shock, and confusion they would be feeling as darkness fell that evening. So the crew was busy that day working on a fuel reduction strip. So it was a ridge running south through the contract, and that process involves cutting the thinning trees into lengths and then building big piles. So it was really strenuous work. There was talk about like they had to take 2 lunch breaks that day because it was just so much manual labor to not only cut the trees down, but then also pile all of them up.
You have to carry them. And did they have any machines?
No, they just had chainsaws.
Were
and
any
muscles?
Did any exist back then?
I don't know. Like to get into, I'm trying to like paint the picture of how deep this forest is. Like to get into it, they had to take this like little tiny dirt road. They're in the middle of nowhere. A lot of them talk about how they did enjoy the fact that they were out in nature for their job because it was just them. It was just the 7 of them. Of course, they had the sound of the chainsaws and all of that. But when they would take breaks, it was very peaceful and they could sit there. And so some of the men would be responsible for cutting down the trees, and then others would be making the piles. That day, Travis was running a saw, and then Alan Dallas and John Goulet were also on the saws. And then Dwayne Smith, Kenneth Peterson, and Steve Pierce were the pilers. And then Mike was the crew chief, and he was just kind of coming around and supervising, making sure, and he was fixing the piles. If they weren't done right, they could get in trouble from the government. And so he was like the quality check.
Ugh. Just even thinking of these piles, I'm just imagining logs on top of logs on top of logs,
huge,
like going into a triangle and getting
like
them
bonfires
up there without like help.
Yeah, this is hard work.
I just see all of them like rolling away and you dying. Am I picturing it wrong? Are you talking like more teepee style, or are they like laid flat and then on top of each other?
They were kind of laid
triangle?
flat on top of each other is what it sounds like. And so these are like the weaker trees, and they're just piling them up. I don't know if they would burn them later. I don't know exactly. I didn't research a lot about the logging industry.
I want to know more about that, Kendra.
I'm sorry. So in Travis's book, which is where I took a lot of this information from, he said that Dwayne Smith, he was the newer, Herman Munster guy that I guess probably nobody on this listener even
Everybody's
knows who he
gonna
is.
know.
Except for Jessica.
I'm the odd one out.
He was saying that, Dwayne was inexperienced and he kept kind of getting in the way. So Travis was trying to direct him so that he didn't get smashed, because this is dangerous work. If you're in the wrong path and somebody's sawing the tree, like the tree could fall on top of you and you're dead. Yeah. Travis did mention that Steve seemed to be moving slow that day. And he mentioned, he was probably nursing a hangover or high on pot. So once again, they didn't think much of each other.
That's Steve.
And he said that Steve, anytime he could, would take advantage of just sitting on a nearby log.
Sounds like a 17-year-old.
He mentioned that he was trying to keep his distance and, be a good lumberman or whatever. And he said while he was sawing, he noticed a shadow behind him, and he jumped barely in time for a tree that almost hit him. And he looked behind him, and he realized that the tree was being cut down by Alan Dallas. And he said Alan Dallas had this like smirk on his face that just gave him the impression that it wasn't an accident. He said, Alan, drama. Alan, he said, was very fast at his job, but he was very reckless, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And that's why he had almost, gotten
Smashed
into fist
him?
fights with a lot of people. But because he was so fast, Mike kept him on the crew because they're trying to meet this deadline.
Don't want to be around people who are like playing Russian roulette with trees falling down.
And you're in the middle of nowhere,
Right.
nowhere close. The closest town was Heber, Arizona, and it was about 15 miles away, but it would take them about 30 minutes or more to drive there.
Yeah.
Because of the roads. So they were coming to the close of their shift. As I mentioned earlier, they were working about 2 hours later than they usually did. So sunset that night was at 5:45 p.m. and they kept cutting until the waning light. So at 6 p.m., they got the whistle that it was time to leave. And they loaded up all of their chainsaws, their gas and oil cans into the back of their 65 International crew cab.
Okay.
So they loaded into the truck, and the way that they would sit is that they would put the non-smokers in the front and the smokers in the back, because this is the 70s when everybody smoked.
A whole 2 feet between you.
Makes all the difference.
Right, it does.
I guess, though, I don't know, when you smoke, does the smoke go back? So maybe if you're in the back and they have the windows open, it can go out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean,
instead of going up. But yeah, I mean,
unless the wind's like, nope, I'm going to push this way.
I mean, I grew up in the era.
Perfect science here.
I grew up in the era where it was still smoking, non-smoking in restaurants.
I still remember even in being like 2021 going into like an Olive Garden and there being a smoking section.
Yeah, it changed depending on the states, but like it didn't matter. Like the whole place smelled like smoke if people were smoking in the 70s. That's what they did. So up front, you had Mike, who was driving, and then Travis sat by the door. He was riding shotgun, and then Ken sat in the middle. So they were the three non-smokers. And then in the back, there was Dwayne on the left rear door, John and Steve in the middle, and then Alan was on the right rear door. So they started climbing north up the Ridge Road towards the Rim Road, which is the main road. So the Ridge Road is full of a lot of bumps, and they could only go about 5 to 10 miles an hour. They had to go really slow. They're in a really old truck, and like you can feel every single bump. They talk about how like the truck suspension like barely, So they left around 6:10. They were planning to be home to Snowflake by 7:30 at the latest.
Gotcha.
They had the windows open because they were hot from working all day, and then also to filter out all the smoke from the back seats.
That was nice of the front driving people to let the backseat smoker smoke.
I know. So it's dark outside as they start going. They're not usually driving home in the dark, and as they're going, they're just joking about all the sounds that the old pickup is making, and they're like, oh, are we gonna make it out of here, ha ha ha. And as they're driving, Travis sees a light coming through the trees on the right hand side. It's about 100 yards ahead, and at first in his mind he's like, maybe it's the glow of the sun, and then he remembered, wait a minute, the sun went down for a while, and same thing, the sun was on the other side because he's looking to the east. Then he's like, well, maybe it's hunters because it's November 5th and hunting season has started. So they're thinking maybe it's a hunter's blind. It's what?
I said from helicopters.
No, like he's thinking like a hunter's blind where you set up like a little, do you know what a hunter's blind is?
It's like is it up in the trees? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he thought that, or maybe, some people's headlights as they were setting up camping, because it's 100 yards away. They can't really see. They just know there's a glow, which is odd because they're typically the only people out there. They're in the middle of the woods. There's nothing. There shouldn't be anything. And they're also on a road where there shouldn't be another car.
Bigfoot is actually quite advanced. Yeah.
So this road leads into the Rim Road, and the Rim Road is where all the campers and hunters would usually be. So it was odd to see lights. So they're in like the side road, and I'll have a map because it's hard to describe this without seeing a map. So Travis sees the light, but he hasn't said anything yet. But he notices that all of a sudden everyone kind of stopped talking. So he looked back and realized the two guys in the back on the right hand side were also seeing the light.
They're staring at it.
Everybody's just like quiet, like what the hell is that?
Questioning, what is that?
So they continued to drive up, at their 5 to 10 miles an hour, and they got up to an area where there was more of a clearing. It wasn't like a full clearing, but they could see.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he said Alan was the first one to be like, what the hell? So they saw this glimmering light coming through the trees, were kind of blocking their vision, but they could see a yellowish brilliance, and it was coming out about 90 feet above where they were. And he said it started to come out onto the road. As they kept creeping forward, they couldn't quite tell what it was. And one of the guys in the back, Dwayne, said, I don't know what that is. Maybe a plane crashed and it's hanging in a tree because it's high up. And they're just trying to figure out like, what could this be? So they said, Mike, keep going. And he crawled up just a little bit. And at that moment, Alan yelled, oh my God, I think it's a flying saucer.
Ooh.
They all stopped. They were paralyzed with fear. And he said, Mike actually turned the engine off, which I think is kind of odd, but they wanted to just stop. And like, they didn't want to get closer to it. So it was kind of like this panic situation of, do we want to keep going towards it? Or
maybe
do we want
to hear? I mean, maybe the car was just loud. It's a way to tune in on your senses.
Yeah.
I would understand turning the car off. So I mean, not to get away if you need to get away, but
yeah, I think they were all just kind of in this state of like, is this really real, what we're seeing? So, and also Mike's driving, so he can't really see because he's driving straight forward. He sees a light, but he can't look at it. So I think he also wanted to shut off the engine so he could lean over and look out the window himself.
Right.
So they turn off the engine. They're all just sitting there watching what they think is a flying saucer. The men on the left side of the truck were leaning over. They were trying to, get a good view. And where they stopped, it looked like the flying saucer was about 100 feet away from where they stopped.
It's not very far.
Not very far.
I mean, that's right there. You don't know where I'm pointing, but across the street.
And so they're stopped. They turned off their lights and they're trying to be probably inconspicuous and just watch and see what this saucer is going to do. Travis, for some inexplicable reason, and he doesn't really know why, he opens the truck and jumps out. He wants to get closer.
There's always going to be one of us.
All of the guys are like, what the fuck are you doing? Basically, get back in the truck. But
I don't know which one I would be.
Travis will say, it was amazing. I wanted to, like, how often do you have this experience? He just wanted to get out and look at it from below. They weren't going to move any closer to it. So I think he thought he could like creep up on it maybe and get a better view.
Right.
Nobody has cell phones back then. Nobody has a camera. He just wanted to see what this was. And
I wanted to go chase what I saw a few weeks ago. I actually did turn around with my daughter when we tried to go back and they were gone. So
the truth of the matter is, like, you don't know how you would react in a situation like this. It's kind of the fight or flight. Some of these guys were frozen in the truck like, oh my God, there's a flying saucer. And he's the guy that's like, there's a flying saucer. This seems really cool. I want to go see more about it.
I think that also plays into like where, like, would you be interested or like scared or like, who are you as a person? I think those are like those interesting types of moments where you find out who you are.
It's true. And I want to bring some context too. Like I mentioned earlier that in this area, a lot of people had seen UFOs. And so this was
maybe they'd heard stories before.
I think so. And he had grown up here. He's from Snowflake. And also there had been rumors about like the government doing
sting and
helicopter flights and things like that. So I think he probably just wanted to get out and confirm, like, am I really seeing what I think I'm seeing?
Right.
That's how he describes it. And he even says to this day, he's like, I don't know what possessed me to get out of the truck. And a lot of times he regrets that he got out of the truck, but he did.
Okay.
He got out and he started creeping towards the craft that was floating.
I think it's so funny when we just say craft.
The craft.
I literally only think of like arts and crafts when we only say craft.
So in his book, he said he started walking slowly and he did hesitate for a minute. Like, is this, the smartest thing to be doing? And he looked back and he saw all the guys like,
get back in the car,
like,
stupid.
What the fuck? Get back in the car, He realized what he was doing, but he was also like
enamored and being pulled in by it.
He was like, I reassured myself. He's like, I can always run away. I'm just going to get a little bit closer. I just have to see this. So he continued his approach. He said he moved slowly, cautiously, and as he entered the halo of the light, so he got right underneath where the light was emitting from the spacecraft.
Okay.
He said he could feel the yellow light and he stared up, and what he describes is he saw an unbelievably smooth, unblemished surface of a curved hull of a spaceship.
Okay.
He said at that point, he was just in complete fascination and awe, and he was just kind of his mind was blown while looking at like, I mean, am I really seeing this right now?
What are you supposed to do after that? Be like, all right, cool. See you later.
Yeah. He said that there was a noise coming from the ship. He said it was a blend of low and high pitched mechanical sounds. Kind of. Perfect.
Okay, good.
Perfect recreation. He said there was a blend of low and high pitch. So he could hear the high pitched mechanical sound right above him. But then it was also this low pitch that he said was so low. It was almost like a vibration. You could feel it more than you could hear it.
You know what I regret saying? A couple episodes ago when I mentioned the experience of my daughter and I walking back to our house and we heard that noise.
Yeah.
I was trying to say that.
What he's saying here?
That there, with the click, click noises that we were hearing, it was almost like this heavy feeling and this like a hummy vibration noise that was going along with it, like as its base.
And so Travis describes it this way in his book. And then in the interviews with the other 6 men, they also mention feeling a vibration, not necessarily like hearing the sound, but feeling it coming. Like it's almost power coming off of this spacecraft.
It's almost like the feeling you get if you're not from super humid areas and stepping into a super humid state. Not completely suffocated, but that type of like lighter feeling of suffocation as I like if going from Colorado to like, I don't know, fucking North Carolina or something.
Yeah, I know what you're trying to say. So while he was standing under this craft looking up and hearing these sounds, he felt a swell in the sounds, almost like in his mind, he thought the craft was trying to take off.
Upkeep.
Yeah, like
should I try another
like turning
noise?
The engines on. Like they're like, oh shit, there's 6 guys or 7 guys here. We're gonna get
vacuum them up.
So he said he felt that, and then he heard the men from the truck yelling like, Travis, get back here.
Yeah.
At that moment, a light shot out of the craft. They all say that it was a blue-green ray, like a long just tunnel of light that shot out from the bottom of the craft.
Okay.
It hit Travis right where he was standing, and he says he remembers nothing but a feeling of an intense, like he said in his mind, it would be like what it felt like to be electrocuted. So that's what he felt. And then the guy sitting in the truck see Travis lift it up and falls back about 10 feet. So the beam comes out, it hits him, and he's thrown back like 10 feet.
So like an electrocution.
Yes. And he was thrown, and he doesn't remember anything at this point. He just blacks out because
everybody else has witnessed
this. The
witnesses
see it. They see him. So in his book, he says, this is what the guys said they saw. He said, the men in the truck saw my body arch backwards, arms and legs outstretched, and the force of the blow lifted me off the ground. And I was hurled backward through the air 10 feet. He said they all saw his shoulder hit the ground, and then he just laid there limp and motionless. Steve, at that point,
now I want to see
in the back
movie.
of the truck. You have to. We're gonna watch it maybe tonight. Steve said, "Oh my God, it got him." Dwayne's like, "We need to get the fuck out of here." Like the guys in the truck now are having their flight moment. They're freaked out. They just saw their friend run out, and this happened in a matter of seconds. Like I'm telling it, but their friend got out. He ran out. A beam of light came, threw him back, and now the guys in the truck are like, this thing's going to turn on us at this point. So everybody gets scared in the truck, and they're like, start the truck. Let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
And so that's what Mike does. He turns on the truck, and he starts. Yeah, they think he's laying. I guess they think he's dead. A lot of people will sit here and say, why would you leave your friend? But they're in this.
I mean, it's crazy. You're not going to come across aliens every day.
Exactly.
And especially see another human be hurled by one in whatever way. So I get it.
So they're scared for their lives at this point. And Mike starts the engine, and he starts.
But if it was my daughter, I would go.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring up when I talked about this crew, they're not like brothers.
Right. They're like, I'm not risking my life for you, dude.
And I think that's what you have to remember here. It's like, it's a coworker. It's
exactly.
Not.
Yeah.
It's not the Marines.
Okay, we don't need to get into the massive like importance.
I'm bringing it up because a lot of people are
going
to bring it up later and be like, why would you leave him there? Well, you don't know what you would do in this situation. Were there.
Yes.
And you've got 6 men who are now feeling, like they're about to get turned on by this spacecraft. They saw their friend just...
Exactly.
They think he's dead. So Mike turns on the engine and hauls the fuck out of there as fast as he can, which he says is only about 30 miles an hour. And even that is reckless in this truck on this road because the road is so bad.
Yeah.
And he's going top speed, 35 miles an hour to get to the main road so that perhaps they can find help. And they start talking while they're driving. And they're like, you know, maybe we can find a hunter with a gun. These are, you know,
what the fuck?
They're logger dudes. I don't know what they're thinking, but they're just... I don't think they are thinking at this point. They're just scared and they're just getting away. And as they're driving off, Mike Rogers says he looks in the rearview mirror and he saw the spacecraft or the light take off and go much higher up and leave. So at that point, he sees the light dissipating and he's like, okay, we're not in any danger.
Let's go back.
And he stops the truck.
Yeah.
So they stop. And they're in a clearing area. And the way that Steve Pierce says is he's like, and we got our balls back.
That's good. They just went.
He's like, once we got our balls back, we decided we should probably go check on Travis.
Guess I'm going to make a lot of noises this episode.
I appreciate this. At this point, none of the guys will admit to this, but some of them said that they were crying, they were scared, but these are some really tough guys. They don't want to admit to that later, but they were all having mental breakdowns. I mean,
I can imagine. I mean, seriously.
You just saw a flying saucer come down and take one of your friends or kill one of your friends is what you would think.
Kick them like a football.
Exactly. Touchdown. So they all started talking about what they saw. And they were like, oh my God, this like blue ray just shot out and it hit him. And they were like, do you think he's still alive? Did it disintegrate him?
Disintegrate?
Yeah.
They saw him fall back and hit the ground. They're like, well, he's just a puff of ashes now.
And that's what Dwayne said. And then Steve was like, no, he's still in one piece. I saw him hit the ground. We need to go back. And then Dwayne was like, I heard a zap. It sounded like lightning. He probably didn't survive it. So they're all like fighting. And then they finally are like, we need to go back.
Yeah.
So they do. So Mike turns them around and they drive back to the site. They were having a hard time finding now because the spacecraft is gone. Oh. So they don't really know exactly. And there is a lot of...
It couldn't have been that far off the road that they were on.
Yeah, but it's the forest. It all kind of looks the same.
I mean, I guess it would depend on how far they actually went after it happened.
And they were in a state of like panic. So they drive up and there is some like conversation about exactly where it happened. But one of the guys notices a like distinct pile of wood and he's like, that's where it was. I remember we were parked next to that specific pile. However it was piled up, it looked familiar. So that's where they decided it was. And they got out of the truck and they started looking for Travis.
He was gone.
They did not find him.
Okay. Because you said abducted earlier.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to find out where Travis is and what is happening later. But right now we're focused on the men.
They just needed him to be asleep.
So they pulled up, they parked the truck and they put the headlights out there and they were just kind of, honestly, it was a big shot in the dark. They're in a huge forest. They don't even know if they're in the right spot looking around. They know approximately how far it was from their work site, but not exactly where to pull. So they did try a couple different places. And then after finding nothing, so Ken was the one that was like, we need to drive back to town and we need to call the authorities. By the time they got back to Heber, which was usually only about a 30-minute drive, it had been 2 hours since Travis had gone missing. And that is when they called the local sheriff. And they were very conflicted about what to tell the sheriff because
I imagine
they were going to sound
we were in the
crazy.
Forest. Half of us are high, and we saw our friend get zapped from a ship
by
and
a flying saucer.
Now he's missing.
Yes. So as you can imagine, what do you think the cops thought?
Like there was some kind of accident and he wandered off and now we can't find him, but he's out there. We need help. We need to find him because we think he might actually have a head injury.
So they didn't say that. They said it was a flying saucer.
Oh, okay. So they told the truth.
And that he was still out there. And so the cops took 3 of the guys. So Mike, the crew boss, Kenny, and Alan took the police back out to the site. And they, used whatever they could. It's now 9:00 at night and they're searching with flashlights and whatever they have, but nothing was found. So around midnight, they've been searching for about 3 hours. There's no sign of Travis. And Mike, because he's the best or the closest to Travis, was like, we need to alert Travis's mom. She has a summer cabin that is about 10 miles away from their Turkey Springs job site. And so Mike suggests that they check there first because it's closer, just in the happenstance that she's in the cabin still.
Okay.
She is in the cabin, which is odd for November 5th because it's a summer cabin and it's getting colder. So that's a little strange that his mom would be out there.
Does she have anywhere else to live?
She has a house in Snowflake as well, but who knows? It was a nice day,
Was she
they
married?
said. So no, like I think she lived with, it sounds like she lived with her oldest son. His name's Dwayne, and he'll come up too. So I don't think it's odd, but they bring it up because people who try to debunk this think that she was involved.
You build a fire.
I mean, this lady sounds like she's kind of a badass because they show up at her house at midnight and she comes out with like a shotgun.
She's like, get the fuck off my property.
She's like, who's here? So I don't think she's afraid of much. And,
No.
and this is a cabin where Travis and Dwayne grew up, and they did grow up with several sightings of UFOs. So this wasn't something odd to their family because they had been out in these woods their whole lives. And his brother Dwayne, who was older, had told everyone a story about seeing a spacecraft that was tic-tac shaped in the area and chasing it down when he was like in his teenage years. So UFOs were something that the family believed in. So when they did show up to talk to Travis's mom, she was strangely calm. They said Travis has gone missing, and the 3 guys that were there said that he was taken by a flying saucer. And her response was, these things happen.
these things, they just happen.
He'll
be back in 2 days. Okay. It's happened before. He always forgets. He's a sleepwalker.
I don't know. Maybe the aliens had talked to her. It is odd, and it's something that's brought up by debunkers later as why would you be so calm?
Or maybe she was like, yes, he's gone.
She's like, I don't have to pay to feed him anymore. She also just got woken up at midnight, so she's probably a little
She's like,
out
yeah.
of it. She's like,
These things happen.
Travis is gone. Okay,
I mean,
yeah,
Travis, he always
sure.
gets into shit. He's abducted. Yeah, okay.
Sounds good. I'm going to go back to that. I mean, she could be on sleeping pills. We don't know what the
you
fuck.
have no
so
idea.
I don't know. I don't put a ton of, you just
Who
don't
knows
know how.
if she even said that at this point.
Yeah. There's a lot of hearsay.
I
in
mean,
this case.
She may have said, oh my God, I love him. How could this happen? And it turned into, these things happen.
I mean, whatever. I'm sure they're fine. So the next day when it's daylight, they send out search parties with helicopters. They get the dogs. They get, the full search parties to look for Travis. And they go back once again to the spot that they think it happened. Nobody knows for sure because this was,
there
was
really
in the middle of the
wasn't
night.
evidence.
There really wasn't like an exact spot. They're just going back to where they think it happened.
Okay.
Because they just pulled over on the side of the road in the dark.
It would have been kind for the aliens to leave,
A big X.
his actual body, outlined, scorched in the earth.
So they can find nothing. They searched about a 5-mile radius. They found no footprints, no clothing, no indication that this event ever happened. But they never pulled off the road. So there's not even, if they had pulled off the road, they probably could have found the site. But Mike just stopped in the middle of the road. So there's nothing to really trace down exactly where this flying saucer had landed and where Travis's body could be. I will say this, and this was quoted in June of 2022, because we're going to go into all the people who thinks it was a hoax. Steve Pierce said that Mike was bawling, crying. And he said, if this was a hoax, if this was all made up, because a lot of people think that Mike, the crew boss, was involved as a hoax. He said he must be the best actor ever because there was no way.
When they came in.
Yeah, when they showed up.
Travis is missing. And
and so when he showed up to the sheriff's office, he was beside himself and he was feeling very remorseful for leaving the site.
Originally.
And he had this whole his conscience was just stricken because he left his friend behind. When they asked why it took so long to report to the authorities because it took them over 2 hours.
Because they're in the fucking mountains.
Steve said that they were all just so shell shocked, and he said Mike was just beside himself crying. So
yeah.
I just want to bring this up because these guys were traumatized by this, and Travis most of all, because we'll get to him in a minute. The 6 men who witnessed this, they were, just don't think they were thinking straight because they were just
Is the
shocked.
hoax that they weren't finishing on time and they needed a way to make extra money?
That's going to be one of the theories.
Okay, I thought that in the beginning.
Yeah.
But of course, if you witness something like this, and hello, you're probably also in your mind thinking, wow, my only option are cops to deal with an otherworldly situation.
And the other thing I want to bring up is some of these guys had criminal records already for like burglary, like nothing bad, like just petty, but they're not the type of guys. They say this in one of the documentaries. They're like, we were a ragtag, like rough bunch of guys.
We're not going to go
to
the cops and be like, hey, Ted, I'm here.
And
got a warrant for me?
And they even say that. They're like, how is this going to look?
Yeah.
We were a group of 7, 6 of us come back and say this guy got abducted by aliens or got shot down by a flying saucer. They're going to think that we murdered him.
Yeah, you did something.
And that's really, I think, the reason they were so conflicted
especially if they got led back out there and found him in a mutilated fashion or in some kind of situation.
Accused. Nobody's going to believe aliens did it. So I put myself in their mindset and I'm like, yeah, would I want to call the cops? So I think that finally Kenny was the one that was like, we have to report this because Travis is gone or he's laying out there dying right now, and
or he's
save
wandering
him.
Around trying to figure out where he is.
So while Travis was missing, the first thing the cops thought was exactly what we just talked about. They thought these guys murdered him because what's the chance of a flying saucer taking this guy away? That's just crazy. So they did a polygraph test.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
And it was administered by a man named C.E. Gilson. He came down from Phoenix. He was very well trained in polygraph testing at the time, as good as it was in 1975. They said that all 6 men would have to take this test, and they started with Steve Pierce. He was the youngest because the cops are approaching this as thinking it's a murder case.
Sure.
They think if anyone's going to crack, it's going to be the 17-year-old.
But they can't immediately be like, yeah, aliens.
No, they can't.
Guys,
you can't blame.
Let's get to it.
They're not going to be like, yeah, that sounds about right. They're not going to be like the mom that's like, well, these things happen. These are the 4 questions that they asked the 6 men. Question number 1 was, did you cause Travis Walton any serious physical injury last Wednesday afternoon? Question number 2 was, do you know if Travis Walton was physically injured by some other member of your work crew last Wednesday? Question number 3, do you know if Travis Walton's body is buried or hidden somewhere in that Turkey Springs area? And question number 4, did you tell the truth about actually seeing a UFO last Wednesday when Travis Walton disappeared?
Those are actually pretty good questions.
Yeah,
I feel like they weren't extremely vague.
No.
It's a good thing that none of them like slapped him that day for being an asshole, because one of them would have gotten it real bad.
So that's interesting that you say that. So 5 of the men who took it passed the examination. No problem.
Okay.
The one that did not pass it was Alan Dallas. And I want to bring back
Is that the tree falling thing?
Yeah. So maybe he couldn't, and he didn't fail it. It just came as inconclusive. And so I think when I look at these questions,
I wanted it to fall on him, but it didn't.
I think that's why it came up as inconclusive, is because he kind of
it's on his head. He's like, well, I was kind of hoping he wouldn't die, because then that'd be real shit.
Yeah,
but it was fun to think that.
And the others passed with flying colors. A lot of the debunkers will say this wasn't proof of a UFO because it didn't go into enough detail. But question number 4 was, did you tell the truth about seeing a UFO? And all of them said yes.
Them passed.
Yeah. So while that's going on, nothing has been done. It's been several days, no sign of Travis.
Did they look for him though?
They kept looking for him.
Yeah.
They looked for him for 3 days. They found nothing, and they stopped searching, and they did this polygraph to see if like they could find anything. It didn't come up that there was any, suspicion of a homicide. So shortly after midnight on November 11th, this has now been 5 days since Travis went missing. His sister received a call She lived in Taylor, Arizona. So this is kind of in the same area as Snowflake.
Okay.
She received a collect call from a phone booth in Heber, Arizona. And when the operator patched him through, it was someone saying, "This is Travis. I need help. Come pick me up."
Oh.
So she immediately called her older brother, Dwayne, and Dwayne and her husband, so Travis's brother-in-law, drove over to Heber, Arizona, and picked up Travis from a phone booth. At first, when they got the call, as you can imagine, you get a call at like midnight. Your brother's been missing for 5 days.
Yeah.
And someone says, "This is Travis." They thought it was like a prank.
Joke. Yeah.
But I guess they stayed on the line long enough to realize that it was, in fact, Travis. And he was very disoriented.
And naked.
He wasn't naked. That'd be funny. He was not naked. He was in clothing. But they rushed over to pick him up. And because it was made through an operator collect call, the operator had to report it to the police. So the police were also on the way from Snowflake, but his brother and brother-in-law got there first, and they took him back to his mother's house.
The cabin or the other one?
The one in Snowflake.
Okay.
So they describe arriving and finding Travis crumpled up, basically just on the floor of the phone booth in kind of a catatonic state. Like he looked like he had been through hell and back and was just shell shocked is the only way really to describe him. It was reported that his clothes were on, but they were backwards.
Oh.
And he didn't really have, or he wasn't making a lot of sense. He was trying to tell them what happened to him, but he was just in this really disoriented state.
Interesting.
So they picked him up and took him back to his mother's home. And Dwayne he's the older brother. He became very protective of Travis. So Travis is 22. I believe Dwayne was around like 25, 26. And he was like a big, rough cowboy kind of guy, is how he's described. And he didn't want the police coming in or anything like that. He just wanted his brother to
decompress.
Exactly. And Travis describes like him being in just a complete blur when he came back. He couldn't really make sense of what had happened. And he obviously didn't want to answer a lot of questions or anything like that. He just
I want to sleep.
Really, he did. So back to what Travis said he experienced when he was dropped off by the UFO. He said, "Consciousness returned to me and he awoke to find himself on the cold pavement. He was lying on his stomach. And he said the cold air is what brought him instantly awake." So he said they dropped him off basically in a state of unconsciousness. He said he looked up, he saw the light. He did mention when the UFO dropped him off, something that was very, I guess, striking to him was that they were very quiet as they departed. So I don't know if it was a different kind of spacecraft that brought him back, but he said it was alarmingly quiet. So he just woke up, he saw them taking off, and he was in the middle of a dark highway.
Interesting.
He said when he scrambled to his feet, he felt like his legs were made of rubber, and he just ran down into the town. He first stopped at a service station. He didn't know what time it was. He just knew it was night. He thought it was the same night. He was knocking on doors. No one was answering. And that's when he ended up in the phone booth. So when Dwayne and his brother-in-law Grant showed up to pick him up, he thought it was the same day. And he said, "I must have been unconscious for a couple of hours. I remember being knocked out. And then I woke up on the dark pavement." So he's saying that's all he remembers right now.
He doesn't remember. Oh, right now. He doesn't remember.
Dwayne said, "Feel your face." And when he touched his face, he realized that he had like a beard, I guess, whatever happens in 5 days.
Stubble.
And then he was like, "Oh my God, something, happened here." Dwayne
For
told
girls,
him,
it would be, "Feel your legs."
Right.
That'd be like the next day.
You're like, what?
5 hours later.
This happens. It was cold out.
Exactly. I always got so mad at my dad growing up because he loved the air conditioner on in the house. And I'd like,
get out of the shower.
Please turn off the air conditioner just so I can shower because then it will be pointless.
I know. So Travis realized he'd been missing for 5 days, and that kind of freaked him out even more because he had no recollection of what happened. And as you can imagine, that would be I don't even know how I'd react. If you wake up, you think it's been 20 minutes. The only thing I can compare it to is when you wake up from like a surgery and, you know, you've been under for 3 hours and it literally feels like 2 minutes.
Or you pass out in a nap and you realize that it's been 4 hours and you're like, shit.
So when he came back, it was quite the media circus.
Sure.
Because for the 6 guys who had been not accused, but suspected of killing him, it was vindication for them to be like, see,
we didn't do it. We didn't do it.
We weren't lying. We said a UFO, and now Travis is back. So
his clothes are on backwards and he has stubble.
So now the question is, where was Travis? They have the story of the UFO. Travis is kind of in this catatonic state. He's not really talking, and they don't know, is it true that this UFO took him? Was he just in the woods for 5 days and finally stumbled back into town? Like, there was still a lot of questions.
Yeah.
So he was taken to Phoenix to be seen by doctors, and they did run a lot of tests on him. Nothing was found to be out of the ordinary, except for, he claims, and he has the receipts, I guess, of an EEG that was done on him, and they were saying something about his brain waves seem to be consistent with that of those who have been like struck by lightning. This was right after he came back, and this is like one of the things that he purports is proof that something happened to him, is that he had these brain waves that are only seen. Yes.
Well, he technically was in the very beginning.
He says that when he got back to his brother's house, he took off the clothes that he was wearing and put them into like a sealed Ziploc bag. And because they wanted to save those to test it for radiation or any other samples.
Alien dust.
Alien fingerprints. Little suction cup fingers. I don't know. So they went to the doctor's office. He had those clothes with him. And he says when they came out of the doctor's office, it was a circus of people and they were being chased. And everyone was like, there he is, because word had gotten out now. It had been a day, maybe 2 by the time he went down to Phoenix. And his claim is they were never able to test his clothing because they were kind of, I guess, mobbed by people, and the bag got ripped open. So no one was ever able to test his clothes for anything. So that can be suspicious.
I love when you wink at me. No one else can see this happening, but Kendra does this thing
I wink
where she winks at me. But it's always flirting. You don't realize when you do that?
No.
And it's always during like a controversial moment that you're talking about. And it's like
I give it away.
Your left eye
if I
goes,
believe it or not.
Wink, wink.
Do I believe it? Probably not.
Oh, now you're winking both.
So at this point, everybody wants to know what happened, and he doesn't want to talk. A lot of the police and, the media, they all want to interview him. They're saying he should do a polygraph test to prove, what happened, because he was claiming still that he felt a light and that's all he remembered. He states in his book that he was in no state to be taking a polygraph test and honestly answering any questions. He really was completely shell-shocked. If you ever see an interview with him, when he talks about this incident, like, he still looks traumatized. I don't know how else to say it. Like, a lot of people will say that this was a hoax and they don't believe him, but he's very credible when you listen to him. He's a very humble person. The way that he talks, it doesn't seem like he's looking for attention.
Interesting.
If this was a hoax, then he's a very good actor and a very good liar.
That's how I'm hearing that in a lot of stories just recently and things that we're researching. And that's such a common thing. It's like, well, if they're lying, man, they should get an Oscar.
These are logging guys, 7 of them, and they're all saying this happened. So it seems like a lot of people will say this is the most credible story out there just because of the sheer amount of witnesses.
Right.
Other abduction stories, there's usually one person, they say they're, taken out of their room and returned, and there's no proof. With this, we have 6 witnesses that sat there and watched.
Yeah.
Now, nobody else can account for what actually happened in the spacecraft or after those guys left in the truck. That may be why people don't believe him. So let's go into what he says happened.
Okay. I want to hear it.
So it was suggested to him that he should go under hypnosis.
Okay.
You know, they do this all the time with traumatic events. Sometimes your brain blocks it. So they said, let's put Travis under hypnosis. And he was taken to a place once again in Phoenix. And they actually invited the media to come and watch while he was under hypnosis, because at this point, Dwayne had kind of taken over for his brother and he wanted to prove to everyone that his brother wasn't making it up. They took Travis into a hypnotic state and he started recalling what happened to him after he felt that jolt of energy.
Yeah.
So the first thing that Travis recalled was opening his eyes and feeling himself lying on a metal table. At first, he thought he was in a hospital.
Yeah, that
Something
would make
had happened.
sense.
And as he opened his eyes, he saw 3 beings around him. And his first assumption was that it was like doctors or nurses.
And he's just blurry visioned.
After he really came to, he realized something was terribly wrong. And as his vision became clearer and clearer, he noticed a light above him. He said it was a luminous rectangle about 3 feet by 1.5 feet. And he realized that wasn't something that would be seen like in a hospital setting. So it was like
usually
almost like
lights and different areas.
I'm trying to think what kind of light, like one you'd have over a lab
Like
table or something.
A hallway.
So as he came to, he realized that the 3 beings around him were not human. So he saw the blurry figures leaning over him. He said they had white masks and caps, and they were wearing orange-colored surgical gowns. At this point, he couldn't make out their faces clearly because of the masks.
Like masks, like our surgical masks?
That's what he's saying. Like they had something partially blocking their face. But he noticed that they had very large eyes. He said they were luminous brown eyes, and they were about the size of quarters. He then realized and started to feel frantic. He went into fight mode and he was not tied down. He was just laying on the table. So he said he pushed towards one of the beings and actually hit one of them. He said the one he touched felt soft and that it was very like light, like puny is how he describes it. But he said they were spongy at the same time. So the creature that he hit fell back very easily. He then claims that he was able to stand up. He saw a glass, like a long glass tube laying on the table. And it was the only thing he could find. And so he grabbed that. He said it was very light. It probably wouldn't have hurt anyone, but he grabbed it and basically was just like, keep back. And he said that the 3 beings just stood there and stared at him. They didn't make any noise.
Ooh.
He said when he stood up, he realized they were a little under 5 feet in height. They had a basic humanoid form. So they had 2 legs, 2 arms, hands that had 5 digits each, and then a head with the normal arrangement like eyes, nose, mouth. But he said beyond like that basic outline, they were anything but human looking. He says their thin bones were covered with white marshmallowy looking flesh. And then he described that they were wearing like these single piece coverall type suits that were made of soft orangish brown suede like material. He said he couldn't see any seams. It was like they were all one piece of material.
The clothing.
He said it didn't have any buttons, any zippers, any snaps. They didn't wear any belts. He did see their feet, and he said that they had tiny little feet and they were wearing like some kind of simple tan shoes of sorts.
Interesting.
And that he said if he had to say like their feet, they'd probably be about like a size 4 men's foot. So they're pretty small guys. He said they extended their hands out and he noticed that they had no fingernails. He said their hands were small, delicate, and contained no hair. He said their smooth skin was so pale that it looked chalky and ivory colored. They had no hair and their bald heads were disproportionately large for their little bodies.
Okay.
They had bulging, oversized craniums, a small jaw structure, and an underdeveloped appearance to their features. He called them almost infantile looking. They had very thin-lipped mouths, and he never saw them open their mouth. He said they were communicating in some way, but they were not speaking. So he ponders if they were telepathically. Yeah, you know, he's saying these beings are so much more advanced than us. Like They didn't need to talk. They didn't smile. They
just need
there
to
was
eat.
He said there was no facial expressions to them at all. And they just kind of stood there staring at him.
Creepy.
He said they had little mini rounded noses and they had like small little oval nostrils.
I mean, they just sound cute.
They kind of do.
Yeah.
You just want to grab them and hug them, right?
And they're all yelling in their heads, she touched me. I can't believe she touched me.
He said he was, at this point, he was screaming and he had become hysterical and he just kept shouting questions at them like, who are you? Why am I here? What are you doing to me?
Sounds like Scott Falater. When the cops came in, remember?
Why are you here? He said as he came towards them, he was going to, I guess, try to, I don't know what he was thinking he was going to do, but he had this glass tube. And as he jumped towards them, they abruptly turned and left the room. He saw them leave the door. And so he was like, okay, now I know how to get out of here, but he didn't necessarily want to follow them. And he describes just having adrenaline in his body at this point. He was afraid the aliens would return. He kept watching the door, but no one came back in. So he started looking around the room that he was in, and he said he noticed a tray full of strange instruments. Nothing that he recognized, but he said some of the chrome-like objects reminded him of those he would see in like a dentist or a doctor's office.
Typical representation is what I'm hearing so far.
It sounds very much like what you would have heard in other
or
abductions.
seen a movie. Or
So then he claims that he waited a while and then went out of the door, and he came into another room that he said was about 16 feet across with a domed ceiling about 10 feet high. And he said equally spaced around the room, there were 3 rectangular outlines resembling like closed doorways. No one was in this room. And he said the room was totally empty except for a single chair that was facing away from him. And he said as he approached the chair, the darker the room was becoming. And he said that small points of light became visible on the walls, the floor, and even on the ceiling. So it basically became like a star map is how he describes it.
Okay.
And he said when he would step back, it would go away. But as he stepped closer to the chair, it was almost like a control room was his thought. So he approached the chair and he sat down in it and was wondering what it could do. And there were levers on each side. And he said as he started to touch the things, the map or whatever that he was seeing was moving around. So typical flying saucer type controls.
Stargate.
While he was in there, he heard the door behind him open. And at this point, he said a human man, walked into the room. He said the man was about 6'2", and he had a clear helmet on.
Interesting.
He said he wore a tight-fitting bright blue suit. Looked like a uniform, but it didn't have any emblems or anything like that on it. It was just a blue one-piece coverall type thing. He ran up to him, excited to see someone that looked human, and started asking him questions. The human man just looked at him and did not answer. He grabbed him by the arm and gestured for him to go with him, and he led him out into the hallway.
Ruh-roh. We don't like this human dude.
He took him into another room, and as he came into that room, there were 2 other humans.
So is his like clear helmet stopping... They're controlling his mind?
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe it's some of their technology, and by sticking that on his head, he becomes their little robot man.
In the interviews I watched with Travis, he had a few different ideas about why a human would be there. One of his theories was that it was a human working with the aliens, like you said, and the helmet was something for like the atmosphere, could have been mind control. He also wonders if the aliens, knowing that he was freaked out by their appearance, had some way to make themselves look more. He tends to think that they made themselves look
and came back.
Yeah, because he's going to go into another room and there's going to be 3 humans. So interestingly enough, there were 3 aliens and now there's 3 humans.
Okay.
So it could have just been if they have some kind of technology.
Yes. Or was
so they're all in the same blue suits.
One wasn't like a beach man or anything.
One was a woman.
Interesting.
His thought was it was to make him feel more comfortable.
In blue suits and plastic headwear.
Maybe the plastic headwear.
They tried.
Maybe the headwear is what made them change into humans. Maybe
well, that's like what I'm saying. Yeah, they put it on and there you go.
And then they could be whatever they wanted.
Yeah.
So he was escorted into this other room and they put him down on another table. And at that time, the woman put something over his face that was similar to like a oxygen mask, but not quite. That's just the only thing he knew to describe it as. And then he basically was knocked back out into unconsciousness.
Okay.
And that's all he knows. And then he woke up on the highway.
Oh.
So that's his whole story of what happened over 5 days.
Do they give like CAT scans to these people to make sure they still have all their organs and shit?
I mean, he was checked, by the medical when he came back, and nothing was out of the ordinary outside of the brain waves. He did also have a small puncture wound on the inside of his elbow.
Okay.
So that was the other curious thing. His friend saw him thrown back and essentially electrocuted.
Yeah.
He didn't have any bruises on his body and he didn't have any signs of like injury. He does say when he woke up, he felt like he was in a large amount of pain and he felt very scared. Like he felt like he had been injured when he first awoke on the table with the aliens around him. His theory to this day is that the aliens never planned to abduct him. His thought is that they were, hanging out in the pasture or not the pasture, in the woods. They were doing whatever aliens do. And they came up on
Mutilate
them.
cows.
Probably doing their sacred rituals with the cow parts. And when these 7 guys came up on, it kind of startled them. And he thinks that when he got out of the truck and started walking towards the spaceship, they were taking off and he inadvertently got sucked in or hit by something that shot out of the spacecraft. So he believes that he was injured. He was like a innocent bystander that got in the way. And he thinks the aliens were actually
trying to help him.
Exactly. Oops, we just killed one. Or
oops, we zapped one. Damn it.
Exactly.
Why did he step under that? Doesn't he know that zaps things?
Exactly. So he thinks they brought him up into the spaceship to fix him.
That's like my number one hope, that if an alien takes me someday, that I get to go up there and they like stick me in a bathtub of goo that completely like heals everything in my body.
Right.
That
would be amazing.
That's what I want.
And then they can drop me off.
Yeah, and then bring me back.
Drop me off at a spa afterwards.
Don't make me
so
look
I can
too
decompress.
young. You can relax some of the wrinkles that I can't look that different, but heal everything internally. Thank you.
Although he says he woke up and he was afraid because when he first saw them, that's disorienting and freaky. The more he's pondered over the 40-something years, that is what he believes. He's like, why else would they have brought me back?
Yeah.
He does not subscribe to the thought that aliens are here to harm us in any way or pick us up and probe.
His aren't.
Yes.
You never know.
They're not all here just to anal probe us like South Park.
You got to think about it. There's only so many holes. They got to check out what's
like, what does this do?
Where's that one go?
So that is most of the story there. And now I want to talk about
what happened
afterwards, because it's a pretty far out there story for anyone to accept, especially in 1975. So I want to go into what proof, I guess, the 7 crewmen say they have to say that this actually happened. Once again, the only person who can
say what happened up there
is Travis. And there's no way. But he has taken over 5 polygraph tests.
And now they're saying polygraph, schmolygraph.
Yeah. I'm going to go into one of the best ones that he took and all the questions that they asked him.
Okay.
I don't have an answer on this, if it happened or not. I just want to present everything that I could find. And then, like we say on all of our episodes, you get to decide for yourself.
You get to decide.
I want to start with a quote that Travis Walton said. I was nicknamed the reluctant celebrity. I never liked being considered a celebrity or the attention that came with it. But along with the burden comes a certain amount of responsibility. He said lots of people are afraid to speak about what happened to them, UFO abductions, and he thinks him speaking up helps others to feel vindicated. And I saw an interview with him, I think it was in 2015 for his documentary. And once again, the guy comes across so likable, very humble. And he even says that he's like, I'm here to speak for the others that are afraid to say what happened. He never left Snowflake. Like he stayed there. He swears to this day that this is what happened to him. And the only reason he wrote a book and did any of like the movies or anything like that was because he felt like he needed to get this message out there.
I'm sure the money helps, but it's not like when you're saying this stuff to begin with, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to make tons of money being the weirdo.
I think that's really interesting too, because 7 guys are involved.
Yeah.
And none of them wanted, you know, national notoriety. And you definitely don't want to be known as the UFO abductee.
Right.
It's not a cool way to become famous, I guess is what I'm saying. And that's essentially what he has said over the years. He's like, I wouldn't wish this on anyone. Yes, he got some money out of it, but it would be a very high price to pay to make something like this up in my mind.
The only thing that comes to mind is if there was a similar thing that happened that they were all aware of. They were up on the clock of finishing this project and they were going to get docked money. It happens to be on a day where they're working late. They're probably really tired and they're not going to meet their deadline. And maybe they did get high and they're like, dude, that dude in Florida talked about, look at him. Now he's on TV and shit. Let's do that.
That is something that has been brought up.
Okay.
So 2 weeks before the November 5th abduction of Travis Walton, there was a movie that was released about the famous abduction story, which I'm going to do this eventually too, of I think it's Beth and Barney Hill. Let's talk about that in a little bit because I have a lot of information about debunkers and the skeptical side of it. So I'm going to start with what Travis and the 6 other crewmen said happened and the proof that they have that their story is true.
True.
And then we'll go into some of the theories about if it was a hoax and motivations behind that. Media flooded into the town and Travis Walton did become an overnight sensation. The National Enquirer was one of the first on site and they actually brought in polygraph people. I think if I remember right, they helped pay for the hypnosis.
Okay.
So they offered the men a total of $5,000 to tell their stories. So this was $5,000 for all of them.
Yeah.
Travis kept $2.5K. So he kept the $2,500 since most of the story was about him and like what was on, what happened on the UFO. And the others got about $415 each. In 1975, that would be equivalent to about Travis getting $14,000 and the other guys getting $2,375. So
it's not a bad chunk for an hour.
It's a nice amount of money, but it's also not life-changing money.
No, definitely not.
Also, for reference, the average yearly salary in 1975 in America was $11,000. There is a picture of all 7 men. Actually, it's only 6 men because Steve was not in the picture. And I'll post this to our socials. There is a picture of all the men with their checks that they got from the National Enquirer.
Oh.
One of the guys is smiling kind of, and people will say this is why they did it.
Oh. Why are you taking a picture with the checks anyway?
Yeah.
Maybe it was for National Enquirer.
I don't know. They never really said why they took that picture, but
maybe
it's
it's
out
like
there.
A condition. You have to smile with these checks.
It could be just to say, you know, this is what they got, but it's out there and it's on every debunker site. They're like, look at these guys. They're so happy for the money. They did this for the money.
I'm sorry. If you're given money, you're going to probably at least crack a smile.
These guys went through it.
Yeah.
I was reading one of the interviews. I can't remember which guy it was, but he said when he went anywhere in town, people were laughing at him.
Yeah.
They were like, they're in the town of 2,000 people. Everybody knows them. They're the laughing stock. They said, you know, they'd run into 5 people and 4 of the 5 people thought they were crazy and making it up. Like they felt very ostracized.
Yeah.
So much that Steve Pierce, the 17-year-old, skipped town like right after. He was the one that was not in the picture with the checks.
That would make sense.
He just wanted the hell out of there because he
like,
didn't want to be made fun of.
This place. I'm out.
He did. So on the positive side, Walton, once again, Travis Walton has passed over 5 polygraph tests. And he brings that up many, many times. If you ever read his book, I think over half of his book is just, this is why you should believe me. And he brings up, you know, all of the background of the polygraph examiners and the fact that he used different ones from all over and not just the same, you know, person.
Right.
Because he really, truly wants people to believe that what he says happened actually happened. Walton was also known to be of high character. There was no reason for him to...
He wasn't the loony of the bunch.
He wasn't a loony in town. A lot of interviews and everything say Travis seemed like a really honest guy. He wasn't the kind of guy to just make stuff up or lie. He had no criminal background. Like, he was overall just a good, guy who did logging for 6 years.
And imagine how annoying it would be to keep something up like that.
That's
for so
where
long.
And they still to this day say...
And that's all of them
happened.
with separate lives and all that jazz
Yes.
and
And
stuff.
we'll go into where they all are now and what they have said over the years. But Travis has never wavered from his story. And every time he's told his story, it's been the same. Mm-hmm. He's 70 years old now. Like, if his story was going to change, I think it would by now. I mean, if you listen to his interviews, the last interview I listened to was from 2019. He was on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Oh.
And you can tell he's an older gentleman. He struggles to talk real fluidly, or
right.
I don't know how else
just
to
a bit jittery.
Yeah, but he's still saying the same thing. He's still recounting the same story he has everywhere else. Once again, he seems like a really likable, kind of credible guy, just normal dude. So the other thing that they wanted to do to try and prove that this happened was to get radiation tests done in the area. They go back to the area, but
they don't know exactly
they don't really
where.
know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they do radiation tests in the area. Nothing was found out of the ordinary. The one thing that they did find were a few hard hats that were in the back of Mike's truck that tested high for radiation on a Geiger counter. So that's the only thing they had that showed radiation. Mike Rogers also took core samples from the trees in the area. He wanted to take those in and get them tested by like a legitimate lab to see if anything was off with the trees. I don't really know what that would show, but he said that he could not find any labs that were willing to take it on and test it because they didn't want to have anything to do with UFO.
That is a thing back then.
It's 1970. And I think that's what we have to get our mind in is that this is not, it's not 2023. Like, now it'd be there's so many.
Look at what they're doing online now, not online, just in general now. Now they're just accepting it. Look what they shot down in the sky.
Right.
Alien space. Now it's just being said without anybody like mentioning it. Hey, they actually mentioned aliens on the news today, and everybody's like, yeah.
The Pentagon did, but in 1975, you are a legitimate
cuckoo.
But I was going to say, if you're at a university and you're trying to build a name for yourself and you're a legitimate, you're not going to want to take core samples from a guy who says, hey, I'm a logger from, small town Arizona.
Check it out.
There was a UFO. Will you test this and give me the report? They're not going to want to associate their name with the UFO conspiracy.
That's true.
And I think that's part of what happened here. In 2015, things were a little bit more
open.
Yeah. I'm what's the word I'm looking for?
Aliens exist.
They did a 40th anniversary documentary called Travis, The Real Story. And it was on...
They could have had a better name than that.
I watched all of it. It was about an hour and a half long. And during the filming of that, they actually had a expert on trees come in, and they went to the area and they did a core sample. And the area that they believe this happened has now gone through a fire. So it's definitely changed from, when they were there 40 years ago, of course. But they did find some trees there, and they were able to locate some unusual growth patterns. So where Travis and the crew members think the craft was, they took a core sample from the tree, and there are different growth patterns that would have happened if you know how to read tree rings and everything like that. They're saying that at one moment in time it started growing faster, and they don't know how to account for that. And I'm probably not explaining that really well.
I get what you're saying, that they're looking at the rings and then there's a distinct line, and all of a sudden, instead
it's
of
growing
it being
twice as fast,
a quarter of an inch apart, it's
and it's only on the one side of the tree. So it's growing haphazard, kind of in
how does that work though? It's
ovular
rings.
shape.
Oh.
If that makes sense. So the side of the tree that was where the craft supposedly landed is growing at a faster rate than the side of the tree that was not exposed to where the craft landed.
So it's almost
like the backside of the tree.
It's like the tree has a growth.
Yes.
On one side.
Yeah. So they think that could be proof.
Maybe.
So I want to go back to...
Maybe that's what they were trying to do. That's like they were there to test our trees, and they're like, let's see if we can make them grow faster. They interrupted.
Who knows? They had a little guy out there
painting the side of the tree.
And they're like, oh, fuck, there's a truck. Get in the craft. Abort mission. One of the theories that I heard Travis Walton bring up, and this was brought up on the Joe Rogan interview, he said that this area of the forest, this is the second highest location for lightning strikes in America.
Oh.
The first one is in the Everglades, Florida, and then this part of Arizona.
Interesting.
And he was
I've said
saying,
interesting way too many times today.
So when lightning strikes sand or dirt, it can form
glass.
Kind of, but it's a certain kind of
Haven't
mineral.
seen Home Sweet Alabama?
You mean Sweet Home Alabama?
What did I say?
Home Sweet Alabama.
I'm dyslexic, apparently. Anyway, that's how they fall in love. They used to
Really
get the glass from the sand from the lightning. Okay, apparently I'm just the movie reference
you always bring
person
up a
in
movie.
in this relationship.
I just tell you about
I hope
movies.
people appreciate that.
I talked about The Shining and I talked about Fire in the Sky now.
Yeah, but that was part of your research.
That's what I'm saying. That's the only movies I know.
Oh, okay.
No, I brought up some movies. Anyways, we're way off right now. We're gonna go back. Let me bring it back.
Yeah.
To lightning. He theorized, and he didn't theorize this on his own. It was with another scientist, and I didn't write this down. This is just me recalling from his interview. He thought that perhaps the extraterrestrials were interested in why this area had more lightning strikes, or they were looking for the mineral or whatever that is created by the lightning striking the sand or dirt that's around. So let's talk about the polygraph examination. So he had a naysayer named Mr. Jerry Black who said that he made the whole thing up. Travis approached him and said, I will take a polygraph. I will answer the questions that you want me to.
Yeah.
This really happened. So this was in 1993. So this is, 18 years after the event.
Mm-hmm.
He has this documented. The purpose of the examination was to determine whether or not he was being truthful about seeing a UFO and if he had actually been abducted. So they asked him 2 series of questions, and I'm just going to go over the ones that seem relevant. So one of the first questions was, on November 5th in the forest area called Turkey Springs, did you see a large glowing object hovering in the air? Which, of course, he answered yes.
Mm-hmm.
He said, while you were standing near that UFO-like object, did you believe you were struck by an energy source emitted from that object? And he said yes. After regaining consciousness in a small, humid room, did you see non-human creatures with large, dark eyes?
Yes.
He said yes. And then he asked, did you conspire with your brother Dwayne or anyone else or act alone to stage a hoax about your UFO abduction? He answered, no. Then they asked him a second series. So they give you a break, I guess, when you're doing polygraph because it's a lot. The second set of questions started with, between November 1st and 11th, 1975, did you use any drugs, either legal or illegal? And he answered no.
So he didn't smoke weed?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
You keep confusing him with Steve.
I really do.
The 17-year-old did. And from everything I saw, like Travis was a straight arrow kind of guy. He didn't smoke pot. He didn't smoke cigarettes. He was just a hardworking, normal kind of guy.
There was your Texas.
The other question was, between November 5th and 10th, 1975, were you hiding anywhere on the Gibson Ranch? Because that'll come up. A lot of people thought that he was hiding in the area of like at his mom's cabin because his mom's cabin was on the Gibson Ranch.
Okay.
Question number 3, was the urine sample given to Dr. Candle on November 11th, 1975, your first voided specimen following your UFO experience? And he said yes. This comes into play because a lot of debunkers said that I guess they believed he was on drugs or something. They thought that he gave a urine sample that was, I don't know why that one was in there,
like
but apparently
super concentrated or something. I don't understand. I think that one's funny.
I was on a psychedelic trip. I mean, I guess in the 70s acid was big.
Okay, well, so they're saying that they think that he was on drugs
Out at the Gibson Ranch.
But he is bringing up his urine collection as proof that no, I wasn't.
Right.
Look.
Exactly.
Okay.
I guess I should give a little more context. So a lot of the theories that we'll talk about here in a minute, the debunkers thought he was hiding out on the Gibson Ranch in his mom's cottage, just smoking pot and having a good time for 5 days. And so he wanted to prove, no,
Yeah.
I wasn't having a good time. I was on this, crazy adventure up in the sky. So the final question they asked him, was this UFO incident a conspiracy to help your friend Mike Rogers get out of his Turkey Springs contract? He said no.
Okay.
His physiological responses were monitored during all of these questions. The numerical score of the series was plus 34 for the first series and plus 26 for the second series. To prove that someone is telling the truth, it only needs to be plus 6 or more. So he flew with flying colors,
super
essentially.
truth man.
Yeah.
Okay.
It shows that he was 96% truthful to all of those questions.
Okay.
So debunkers will say that you can practice to do polygraphs, but he did take 5 over all of this.
I mean, do we only believe that truth comes from heart rhythm and perspiration?
I know.
I feel like if you were to do the polygraph in conjunction with something else, it would probably be a really good indicator of truth or not, because we've really started to not use the polygraph at all anymore. We only agree with it when it fits the narrative that we want to be true.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Well, it is one of the biggest pieces, and I don't know what else he could do to prove what he's saying is true. Like, it's the only thing he can do.
He can go outside and be like, can you come back down and give me something? You leave me like this. Thanks for saving my life, but look what I have to live with.
And I think this is a story for anyone who's been abducted. If they come back and say that, no one ever has true proof.
And it's because you're left without an understanding of the purpose of why did that happen?
Right.
To me, what am I supposed to do with this now that I know that you were like in my life for a moment?
So that is the evidence I have on Travis, Walton, and the crew's side.
Okay.
It's mostly polygraph. We've got the tree.
Yeah.
Got the radiation on the hats. We have 6 witnesses, actually 7 witnesses, I guess, that there was a flying saucer that night.
Yeah.
Their stories have not changed over 40 years. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, actually, Alan Dallas. So he was the guy who failed the polygraph originally in 1975.
He was the one that was chopping trees down, right? And trying to see if they'd fall on people.
Yeah, so he took another polygraph in 1993 as well, and he passed that with flying colors.
Okay.
He, I guess, wanted some redemption.
Yeah.
And people can fail polygraph tests because they're nervous.
Yeah.
They did also test his brother, Dwayne, because we're going to go into it here in the hoaxing. A lot of people think that he worked with his brother, Dwayne. If you believe that it was a hoax, he's the one that is...
like the manager.
Yeah. Oh, no, the manager's Mike.
No, I mean, like, he was his brother's manager when he came back.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's the one that said he saw UFOs when he was younger in his teens. A lot of people think that they like concocted this together, and Dwayne has also passed several polygraph tests too.
I want to have one.
A polygraph test?
I just want to see what happens.
In 1975, when they were going in to take the polygraph test, Steve Pierce, the 17-year-old, again, he was one of the most vocal, so I keep bringing him up. But he said he was afraid to take the polygraph because he was afraid that they would use it however they wanted to say that these guys murdered him. And he remembers like going in and being like, they're going to lock me up. I'm never going to leave. Like they're not going to believe me, and I'm going to be accused of murder.
He was being a smart kid.
Yeah. So let's play the devil's advocate now, because that's your favorite thing to do.
Yep.
And
I think I've been playing that a while.
Yeah. You've already been bringing up some of the things that are going to come up.
Yeah.
So there were 2 main theories, and they were brought up by 2 different people at different times on if this is a hoax. So the first person, his name is Philip Klass, and he is a famous debunker. He basically challenges anybody who comes out and says they've seen a UFO or they've been abducted.
That's kind of annoying.
And that's brought up in the documentary, actually, is that when you are looking for the truth, you have to come in as an unbiased person and be open to listening to everything and then coming to a conclusion. So Travis and the people who believe Travis, because a lot of the UFO community does believe Travis. A lot of ufology experts, I guess, as expert as you can be, are on his side. So they always bring up that Philip Klass was just that guy that's like, I'm going to prove you wrong. And so he's always, he's coming in already like, you're a liar. Travis said that Philip Klass did all of this research and he never once talked to Travis.
That's ridiculous. And who do you think you are? I'm sorry. I don't like him already.
Yeah, and if you see him in the documentary, you'll like him even less. So I am going to present this because it is out there and a lot of people believe this. So I want to bring it. I don't think it holds a lot of water, but he also does bring up some good points. So
I'm sure he does, but after so long of trying to debunk other people's stories, I'm sure he also has just this arsenal of what he uses to debunk people.
Right.
And how else is he supposed to even consider some of the other things if his literal job is to say no?
Yeah. And if you really want to go down the rabbit hole, which we kind of did at the beginning of this episode with conspiracies, are there people out there that the government hires to go and debunk everyone? And so there's some thought that Philip Klass, I mean, he could have been working for the government to just try and make everyone look crazy.
Debunks, they kill, they silence, and then when it fits their agenda, they go, oh, it's okay for aliens now because we have this other shit we need to do. So like let them know that aliens are real.
So here is his theory on why this was a hoax. The motive was Mike Rogers had submitted to the bid in spring of 1974 and he had underbid everyone else by 27%. But remember, Travis said earlier, and Mike corroborated this, that this was the highest payment per acre he'd ever gotten.
Yeah.
Philip Klass is saying basically Mike Rogers bit off more than he could chew. He took on this contract. It looked lucrative money-wise per acre, but he was getting to the point where he realized he was not going to be able to complete it. That was coming up on November 10th was his deadline. And so his belief is that Mike and the crew, he doesn't say exactly who. Of course, he thinks Travis is involved, but it could be all 7 of them. He thinks they conspired to create a hoax so they could get out of the contract because it would be an act of God. And then he would still get paid for the contract, even though they couldn't complete it.
I don't know if aliens are in
act of God.
Yeah. I don't know if that's in the subtext of that shit. Probably not.
Here's the thing with this line of argument. There is no copy of the contract out there that anyone's been able to find to show that the deadline even was November 10th.
And that's such a big thing in this story. But the government should have it.
You would think. But there's nothing that any of these debunkers have been able to find.
They always look in the CIA.
They always
database.
allude to this, but they never have real solid proof to show that if they didn't finish on November 10th, he was going to get docked pay. I mean, it could have been like they got an extension and they were able to start again after winter was over. Like there's nothing to show. And why would they wait until 5 days before the deadline ended? You think would have done it sooner?
To be honest, it was very hard work. It sounded like, but they often ended pretty early in the day. They could have extended that earlier than 5 days before.
I guess that's what I was trying to say. It's like, why would you all of a sudden start working later 5 days before? Yeah. Like if you were really worried about your deadline, you would have hired more people or been working later for the last 3 months. Yeah. No, because you know when winter's coming. Philip said that the alleged UFO incident gave Rogers a legal basis to terminate his money-losing contract on the grounds that his crew would not return to the work site because they were afraid because of the traumatic event, and that would allow Mike Rogers to collect the money
that they had done so
contract.
Far.
Yeah.
And Mike Rogers never provided this?
No. So I don't know what that means. There's no contract out there. And they talk about it all the time, but I've never seen it. And usually when you're on the other debunker websites, they have all the evidence and things like that. But this is the one thing I never saw. Klass also challenged the polygraph tests. I should go back. Philip Klass is making all of these claims in 1977. So right after.
Okay.
So he was saying the polygraphs that were given to Travis Walton in 1975 through 1977, questions were dictated by Travis Walton, and that's why he could pass them. He also claims...
What do you mean dictated? He decided what questions would be asked?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what Philip is claiming. He also said that he had proof that there was an unpublished polygraph test given to Travis Walton by the National Enquirer. The National Enquirer had brought in a man named Jack McCarthy, and he's one of the top polygraph examiners in Arizona. He was brought in, and McCarthy gave the assessment that it was gross deception. And I was reading the story from one of the investigators that worked for National Enquirer, and they had a whole story, and they said they showed up to the house and that Dwayne was playing Big Brother and was like, he's in no shape to do this. And then Travis said, I don't want people to think I'm a liar. I'll do this polygraph.
Tried anyway.
Mm-hmm. But he says in his book, he was in no shape to be taking a polygraph. He was just a mess because he had just come back from a UFO.
He wasn't even dressed properly.
The test that class said Travis Walton failed was given on November 15th. So this would have been 4 days after he was dropped off by the UFO.
Okay.
And then they're like, we want to do a polygraph test to make sure this is authentic before we publish it in National Enquirer, because National Enquirer is so worried about their reputation. I mean, they're nothing but truth, right?
Look at what they're doing to tell his story, though. Part of National Enquirer is they try to tell true stories. And the truth that they're trying to do, look what they're trying to do to help him actually tell his story. True. They're a jokester publication themselves, but where else are you going to see it? Think about Men in Black. They're like, pay attention to that shit because that's the true shit.
It's true.
And you think it's the joke.
And then they make it like it's a joke. Not credible. Yeah.
Here come the Men in Black.
So Philip Klass really honed in on the polygraph testing because that is the main thing that Travis Walton was using as his proof that his story was, accurate.
Right. Fire with fire.
So he's saying the National Enquirer gave a polygraph test and that Travis Walton horribly failed it. He then believes that the National Enquirer covered up the failure of his polygraph and allowed him to take additional ones because they wanted to run the story because it's a good story. Mm-hmm. He also claims to have receipts and everything to prove that this polygraph did in fact happen because the person who administered it was paid by National Enquirer. Philip Klass brought this polygraph up because he felt like it was the only one that Travis Walton could not tamper with. So he accuses Travis Walton, when he did take a polygraph test 3 months later, he claims that Travis Walton found an examiner that only had 2 years of experience, so someone who wasn't as experienced as the supposed top secret guy, and that he had practiced at that point how to pass a polygraph. I think it's a stretch. Like,
all of it's a stretch at this point, right?
The one thing that Travis Walton always brings up is that polygraphs have sent people to prison.
Yes.
So he's like, why would you condemn somebody with this test? But when I tell you I was abducted by extraterrestrials and on a UFO, now all of a sudden this test is no good.
Doesn't work.
So
I was saying, it's like whatever the narrative is that you're trying to prove, you're going to use it in some way to prove it.
This is why I have a hard time, because every time I listen to Travis Walton talk, he makes a lot more sense to me.
I know.
And he feels like he's just trying to get
he's
people to believe him.
What is your big fucking problem? I got abducted by an alien. Live with it or don't. What do you want from me?
So the other thing Philip Klass likes to bring up is that his mom didn't seem to care that her son was abducted by aliens. He likes to bring up the fact that the family and the crew members just didn't seem that concerned that Travis was missing for 5 days. But once again, they were probably kind of in, I don't know,
a bit
of shock.
And
what are you supposed to say? How's the right way to react?
And there isn't especially for, I think about this a lot, like if something were to happen to someone that I love and they were to go missing, what would be my initial reaction? Because especially if you're just showing up to my door
at midnight, like his mom,
and they say something and I don't know if I would scream horribly or
you don't know,
or I really don't know what would happen in that moment.
I think we need to give people more grace. Yeah. And I also think that when someone is missing, and this is not just in this case, this is, when there's missing children or there's missing family members, people are shoving microphones in your face and you're not multiple times a day.
You're going to handle much of your grief privately. You're going to hold your shit together for the most part, and then you're going to go
cry,
bawl in your fucking bed
and true.
Not sleep forever.
These are small town people, and all of a sudden the whole world is in their town asking them questions. And
she's like, why are you questioning which house I'm at? Leave me alone. It's my business.
I don't know. I don't think that holds a lot of weight.
No.
And once again, it's all hearsay. I don't know. So I don't put a lot of weight into Philip Klass, but it's out there and you can look him up and he has whole reports on it. He is no longer with us. He passed away.
Well, then I won't be that mean because I was about to say, Mr. Class, stop being so not classy.
I like it.
But rest in peace.
So then this one probably holds more weight to it. And this was put together in 2021.
Oh, okay.
So these people have had a long time to really study it and look at the actions of the 7 people since. And this was done by a woman named Charlie Weiser, and then a producer who was supposedly making a documentary with Travis and Mike Rogers. And his name is Ryan Gordon. He claims that Travis and Mike Rogers approached him to make a movie to tell the world that the abduction was all a hoax that they put on together. The claim of these two is that the hoax was perpetuated by Travis and Mike Rogers working together, and that the other 5 crew members were not involved. They were just there as the witnesses needed to make the hoax seem believable.
So they're claiming to have put on a show in the sky.
Right. And that's what I'm going to go
5.
into.
Okay.
So this is their theory of what happened. The motive for this is that at the time in 1975, the National Enquirer was offering a $100,000 prize for the best UFO story.
Oh.
So this
one is the most
that's why I said this
viable
one,
so far.
This one holds a little more weight.
Yeah.
So $100,000 back in 1975.
Are you kidding me?
Was
right
millions,
now.
Basically. I would,
right now.
Right.
Sadly.
So here's all of the evidence that Charlie has pulled together. And she has an entire website, which I will put in the show notes. And it's like pages upon pages of things that she's put together. So I'm just going to give the highlights because we don't have all day here.
Yeah.
So she claims that Travis Walton had previously talked to his workmates about wanting to meet aliens, and that he and his brother Dwayne were obsessed with UFOs. She also claimed that Mike Rogers and Travis Walton had been together just weeks before watching a show that had premiered on TV called The UFO Incident, and this was about the Betty and Barney Hill UFO abduction case. So Ryan Gordon claims when he was putting this movie together that he spoke with Steve Pierce, who was the 17-year-old.
Okay.
And he said that it was not an ordinary day when they were working. He said that while all of the 5 guys were working, Mike and Travis went missing for several hours that day. While Mike and Travis were gone, they were all hanging out and getting stoned. Now, I'm going to preface this with the fact that I brought up in the beginning, Steve had no love for Travis.
Yeah.
Steve is now saying this in 2021 when Travis has, made money off of this for years. Steve hasn't. So there's some bitterness there. And
maybe Steve hasn't had that fruitful of a life up to this point.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about what they're all doing now. But
okay.
Steve's not making half as much money as Travis and is maybe not doing so well in life. And he has a whole Facebook that you can go and watch if you ever want to. I did, and I can't get those hours back of my life. But he does not come across as, It's interesting that his story has changed is all I'm going to say.
He's the touchdown boy, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's now in his 60s and think he might be retired. He's been divorced a few times. His life has not been wonderful. So he's looking for a way to perhaps get
a last ticket ride.
And so he is the one that has supposedly come out in the last couple of years and said it was a hoax. And so he's the one bringing up, oh yeah, I remember that day. Now that you mention it, Mike and Travis were gone a lot that day. They were probably up to something.
Yeah, because they can scale trees and put entire UFOs up there with lights and stuff in the 70s.
Well, I'm going to tell you what they think it was.
Oh, okay.
He also brought up that it was very odd for Mike to make the crew work 2 hours later than usual and that they were usually gone before dark. So he thinks that is proof that they were planning this whole thing that day to keep everyone there after dark. So their theory is that Mike and Travis were in it together and they drove the crew to a different spot altogether where there is a fire lookout tower. It's called Gentry Tower. I will have maps of all of this to kind of show the direction. So in the original story, they claim that the UFO site was a short distance away before they got to Rim Road, which was the main road.
Mm-hmm.
Gentry Tower is off of Rim Road, the main road leading out of town. Okay. And to get there, it's about a 15-minute drive. Okay. So it would have been quite out of the way. And the question is, would the guys have noticed that they went that far? Now that this theory has been brought up, it's hard for everyone to remember exactly how long it took until they got to where they saw the UFO. So what they do know is that the Gentry Tower, it's about 90 feet tall, which is about the same distance as what the UFO was purported to be off of the grounds.
Yeah.
It is lit up at night, and there is a forest worker that would be stationed there. They actually have a little apartment that they live in for 5 days at a time. So he would have to be in cahoots with them. So this is where I think the theory goes off a little bit. Okay. So they claim that Gentry Tower, somehow I guess Mike and Travis had scoped this out and decided they were going to win the $100,000 prize from the National Enquirer. They looped in Dwayne, which is Travis's older brother, and said, we're going to pull a hoax on the 5 guys we work with. We're going to drive them down this road and we're going to stop. Mike's the driver. Travis is going to jump out and run towards the tower.
Okay.
And then someone will be in the tower with a searchlight to shine down. I will show pictures of what the tower looks like. It's actually square and it has a lot of windows. Mm-hmm. In the darkness, you probably would not be able to see any of like the scaffolding and the trees blocking it. So it could look like it was floating.
I'm picturing this thing being completely white. No?
No.
What color was it?
It has a yellowish color to it.
But even then, if that's 90 foot of scaffolding going up and it's illuminating, wouldn't they see that?
So I have a picture that I will show you, and I will put this on our socials. This is run by Charlie, and she calls Travis Walton the liar in the sky.
Okay.
So a pun on fire in the sky.
Let me see.
The guard tower is kind of a square shape, and you can see windows, and to me you can see the stairs. I don't know, like there would have to be a lot of trees in the way to hide the scaffolding. They would have had to be out there at night to figure out exactly where to park the truck for it to look like a UFO, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So it would have taken a lot of work to figure this out.
I think it's a stretch because what I'm seeing here too, they drew some things and it doesn't look like doesn't look like that.
So here is her theory, is that Mike was the one leading the crew, and when they went in to talk to the cops about what the craft looked like, Mike was the first one to speak up and say that the craft was pie shaped. So she thinks he kind of led the witnesses.
Influenced their memory in some way.
Yes. So that is her thought and theory.
I don't know. I'm looking at it. I feel like you would be able to tell. Well, I mean, have they never seen a freaking tree tower thing before?
So you would think these guys working in the woods, like this is their job. They've seen, I can't imagine this is the only tower in the area. No. They've driven the Rim Road before.
Things,
like,
right?
Yeah. I would think that they would know what that is. But maybe they've never seen it at night. Maybe, they're usually working during the day and they've never seen it lit up at night. So
in the beginning, you said, who noticed it first?
Travis.
He
said there's a light.
Oh, so he did.
So he could have, led everyone
it to that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the best theory so far, but based on the picture and what they drew and described, that's not what it looks like to me.
So here's the other thing.
It is a stretch.
A U.S. forestry worker would live in there for 5 days at a time. So either they would have to know when that forestry worker was not going to be there, or they would have to know the person working that week and get them to join in. Yeah. So Charlie's theory is that is why Mike and Travis were disappeared during the day, is that they went over to the tower to check in and see if the worker had left for the day. And then Dwayne, which is Travis's older brother, would have climbed up and gotten in there somehow and set up a searchlight. Like, there's a lot to think about this. Then they would have had to set up a generator to do a large searchlight.
But then they sped off then why would they not be able to find this thing again? And then whoever works in the tower, if they had to speed off and they left a searchlight on and something that zapped him and made him fly 10 feet, why didn't they find that again? And whoever works in that station, they could have come back and been like, dude, it was like ransacked and they had these lights on and what the fuck?
And so
that doesn't make sense to
here's
me.
her claim. Okay. I'm just trying to put it out there. So Mike drove the crew there. They already had this planned out. Travis jumped out. He did some kind of signal, and then his brother knew to put the searchlight on him. And then as soon as he fell back, Mike knew that he needed to act like it was a problem and drive off with everyone so that Travis could then go climb the 90-foot tower and stay in the apartment for 5 days. Then when the crew of 6 stopped and Mike said, we have to go back and get Travis, he then took them back to a completely different spot.
Okay.
And so they went back to a different spot and they wouldn't have seen the tower. Or they could have turned the lights off on the tower at that point. Once it happened, Dwayne could have turned the lights off.
I still think it's a stretch to assume that these 5 other guys are going to be that gullible.
I think it's a stretch to assume that you can pull a hoax like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty ballsy.
It feels like a really big hoax, if you're asking me. Like,
I mean, for $100,000.
To use an entire 90-foot forestation to be your prop.
I agree.
I don't know.
It's the best they have.
It is. Well, I don't know. It feels like the most viable if you're going to stick it out there, not the polygraphs.
So Charlie said that this idea that 2 people hoaxed or set up the hoax to trick the other 5 people was brought up for months after Travis was returned, but nobody had thought about the Gentry Tower, I guess, until supposedly Ryan Gordon talked to Mike and Travis, and they admitted that that is how they did the hoax on everyone. So I don't know where the idea would have come from.
But they're admitting to make another movie?
Supposedly. So Ryan was going to make this movie with Travis and Mike Rogers' blessing, but then it fell through. Ryan Gordon claims to have recorded phone calls with Mike Rogers, but Mike Rogers has come out in 2022 and said that everything he said in those interviews were taken completely out of context. He claims that Ryan Gordon asked him like different theories about how it would have been hoaxed. And he gave some of the ideas that had been floated back in the 1970s. And he believes Ryan Gordon basically patched, and we know how editing works, patched his words together and then said it was a phone call that he had with Mike Rogers, where Mike Rogers admitted that he and Travis worked together using this tower to hoax the other 5.
I mean, I would think legally they would get in trouble in some ways of coming out so many years later and saying, let's televise this or let's broadcast this. It was just a hoax.
Right.
Wouldn't you think?
I mean, to stick by it for 40 something years. I mean, you could say they're getting older and maybe they don't want it on their conscience anymore. You could say all kinds of things.
But then shortly after they're like, no, he took what I said.
Yeah.
And he made it sound like I said that, but I didn't say that.
Right. And Mike said that. And I watched the interview where he said, no, that's not what I said.
Yeah.
So, and we're about to go into where they all are today. Mike and Travis are not like best friends now. So there's no reason for Mike to stick up for Travis at this point.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to this theory and just finish it out. The other thing that Charlie claims is that Travis's story while he was aboard the alien spacecraft has striking similarities to a science fiction series written by Robert Heinlein, like the descriptions of the aliens, the control room, the human-like creatures. Those were all part of a sci-fi series that was written back in the 60s. So even though this has come out by Charlie, the 3 surviving witnesses that are still around today stand by their testimony and say, no, it wasn't a tower. We saw a UFO.
Yeah. I mean, I think if I came across one of those in the sky and I saw that it was lit up, I would still see the shapes of those square windows, though. I wouldn't imagine that it's anything else other than that.
So the question is, you come up on a light that you're not expecting. And if the person like Travis and Mike are in on it and they say, oh my God, that looks like a flying saucer, maybe they suggested that to them.
And they're high.
it never said they were high. Steve supposedly said they smoked pot, but I read also Mike Rogers said that he had fired people for smoking pot and like he wasn't allowing that at his work site. So that's where the drama comes in, because all of the guys now have changed their stories a few times as far as, you know, who was doing what at the work site. None of them have changed their story about the UFO. They take jabs at each other.
Yeah.
The other thing that Charlie brings up is that Travis Walton went on a show called Moment of Truth on Fox. So this used to be some kind of game show where people would go on and they would ask questions, and it's basically a polygraph test in front of the world, and you answer questions and it starts at like $1,000 and it goes all the way up to $100,000, and they keep asking you harder questions that you have to answer.
This?
2009.
Okay. I was like, in 1970s, they were offering this for questions?
So this was in 2009, and Travis said he agreed to go on the show because he was so confident in his experiences. And Ken Peterson also went on the show, so one of the other crew members, in 2009, and they basically roped Travis into going because they said you could win $100,000, and he's like, that's easy because I know this happened. Yeah. So they asked him 15 questions, and the final question was, were you abducted by UFO on November 5th, 1975? He said yes right away, and it popped up on the screen, and they said he was lying. Oh. He had answered every other question correctly. And actually, Ken Peterson was asked the same questions and he passed all 15. So,
well, I'm sure
it's reality television.
It's that, but and he's in the moment. This is the last fucking question. Yeah. For $100,000, and his heart does something, whatever they go off of, right?
You're right, because he's on TV.
Yeah. There's a million reasons why that could have been read wrong.
Well, and here's the theory. And Travis Walton was like completely just flabbergasted that he failed. And he has several people have come forward and examined this show. And they said they should take it with a grain of salt because this is a reality show. So they ask a lot of questions, and they want to have they have people that come on there and they say, you know, one of the questions that they brought up was, do you find your husband's brother more attractive than him? And the girl goes, no. And they're like, you're lying. So it's a reality television.
Yeah.
So he felt like he was brought on and duped to basically make it look like he was super credible. And then at the end, when he answers they
needed that drama.
Exactly. So I think they compare it to like a Jerry Springer type show.
Oh, or Maury he just died.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
R.I.P. Jerry Springer. I heard that he was actually a really
good man,
a really kind man, and
I did too.
Super cool in his real life.
So I don't put a lot of credibility into this Moment of Truth. It was on Fox, like, come on, in 2009. Yeah. And some people bring that up and say this was the, you know, defining moment that we knew it was a hoax, but whatever. So that's all I have on that side. I just want to now catch up where everyone is today.
Okay. Because they're all oldies now.
They are. So Travis is still alive. He is 70 years old. He never left Snowflake. He still lives in the area.
So my family has to know him. Somebody that lives in that area. Because it's still a small town, you said?
He lives outside of there. He did marry Dana Rogers, who was his girlfriend, Mike's sister, and they're still married today.
Well, that's good. She stood by him all that time.
Yeah. And he is reportedly worth about $7 million today.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's nice for him. This moment did change the course of his life. He, you know, attends UFO conventions. He even hosts his own in the area where he lives. That is called the Skyfire Summit.
Oh.
He just had one for the 40th anniversary in 2015. He does interviews. He is out there. But once again, like, I like the guy.
I don't see that as a bad thing. Like, people are trying to use the fact that he has made money off of his experience as a way to debunk him.
Yes.
Who else do you want to have telling you these things, though?
Right.
And like helping to put together these conventions and talks and books. And you want the person with the experience. So then why then attack him for telling you about the experience?
And he even says, and I think this gives him more credibility, that he was approached about the movie after he wrote his book. And the lady who did the screenplay like added in like scary, or like if you watch the movie, it's more of a horror movie and there's like scarier things with aliens. And he's like, it was completely embellished. That did not happen. Like he's very forthcoming about what was real and what wasn't in the movie versus his book. And he doesn't like try to capitalize on that. He was in the movie. He and his wife actually made a cameo in the movie, but like they don't come across as...
It's not like they get to approve the final thing.
Right. He was probably paid a, flat fee to use his story.
I'm researching one right now that I won't tell you about, but there is a person who did so much research on this, and they used him for his extreme extensive knowledge on the subject, but in the end what they wanted to release was something just more exciting and blockbustery than the real truth, even though the real truth was just as terrifying. But they just needed to add that
Hollywood
horror spin. Yeah.
And that's what happened here. And Travis has brought up in several interviews that he just feels like this happened to him so that he could bring his story and make others feel like they're not crazy. And he comes across very genuine. I don't know. Like,
how's his health now? Does he get updates?
Yeah, maybe he's going to live forever because they like cured anything else that was wrong with him. I don't know. He's never reported any other interactions with extraterrestrials or seeing UFOs or anything like that.
It kind of makes you then believe his one theory that they didn't mean to hurt me, so they tried to fix me and put me back.
I kind of like that idea. Is just like, he was just collateral damage and they had to
damn
fix him.
Rabbit.
Right.
Put his leg back on.
Exactly. Like if we hit a deer on the side of the road and we try and like save it. Yeah. So, and he's never changed his story.
Yeah.
And he still does interviews today. There was a documentary released recently that he was involved in, and it's on Discovery Plus. It was released in 2023. I think it was.
Wow. You know what's really interesting? We keep choosing these stories that are from like somewhat back then, but then there's literal recent updates on a lot of them.
This one was real. I didn't, I mean, I had no idea about this. All I had done was watch the movie before I started researching this. So I think it's interesting. I don't have Discovery Plus. I tried to get a free trial, but honestly, I just didn't have time, but I am going to watch this documentary because they're saying that there's new breaking information in it. So I do want to watch it and see what that is. But if anyone has seen it, and there is new breaking information, you're like, sorry, that's why it's not in this episode.
We'll add it to an end of another episode as an update.
Yes.
Okay.
So let's move on to Mike Rogers, who was, the crew boss. So he moved out of Snowflake and he's been married a couple of times. He actually hosted a podcast himself called The Realist. And he hosted that from like 2019 through 2021. And he would explore paranormal stories, have people on. So he also used this as kind of a launch into discovering more around that. He worked other jobs. He's, not a millionaire or anything like that. He's just a normal guy. He does keep in touch with Travis, but they're not like close friends anymore because he moved away from the area, but he doesn't have any like bad will towards Travis like some of the other guys. He returned for the last Skyfire conference that Travis hosted. So he came back for the 40th anniversary, and he was saying like this was the first time that they had all like really been together because I think two other guys came back for it. And he said it was really sad that they all went through this experience that should have bonded them. And he said instead it felt like it spread them all apart.
Yeah.
And he kind of was reminiscing and saying it's sad the way that things went down.
Well, they weren't all close to begin with. They weren't
I think
meant
that's
to
part
be,
of it.
They weren't meant to be buddy, friends. Like, and if it was this traumatic experience, they probably do just want to seclude themselves and move on from it.
So Steve Pierce, he was the little 17-year-old that seemed to talk the most. He is a truck driver now. And right after the event happened, he moved out of Snowflake and he actually moved down to Texas. He changed his name because he didn't want to be associated with this incident for a while, but he did come back out in the last like 15 years, and he started going to some conferences and realized that he should embrace that he was part of this experience and he wanted to talk about it on his own terms. He was featured in the 2015 documentary that I watched. A really interesting thing that I want to bring up about Steve Pierce, and to me, this also lends even more credibility to the story. He was offered $10,000 by Philip Klass to say that it was a hoax. And he was offered this in 1977.
Oh, wow.
When Philip Klass was trying to debunk
And he was just
it all.
a kid. He
was
probably
19 years
could have
old.
used that.
He actually called them back and said, I will take the money. I will say it was a hoax because he needed the money. So his wife at the time said, is that true? Like, if you take that $10,000, is it true that it was actually a hoax? And he said, no, I saw what I saw. I saw a UFO. And she said, your credibility is not worth $10,000.
Yeah.
And so he ended up not taking the money.
Wow.
And this was a guy that probably needed it at the time.
Right.
So to me, that gives more credibility.
Isn't he the one that then came back and said it
Yes,
was?
that's what I'm
confused.
So he has a Facebook now, and I don't know if he's kind of gone off his rocker or whatever in his old age, but he is the one now that has come back and said he does not believe Travis was abducted. He has another theory.
Oh.
He said that they did see Travis Walton zapped by some kind of craft, but he doesn't believe it was extraterrestrial. He believes it was a government craft, and that when they left, they took Travis Walton and used some kind of mind control on him.
Okay.
So he's more of the government conspiracy type.
Okay, gotcha. Because Travis is so important to them.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that's even more out there. I believe in aliens more.
I believe in a friendly alien that's like, crap, we zapped the wrong thing. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. There is no love lost between Steve Pierce and Travis. And once again, like, if anyone was going to come out and say it was a hoax, it would probably be Steve. And he hasn't even come out and said that clearly. He still says he saw a UFO 48 years later at this point. John Gillette, he was the one with all the sisters that everybody married. He also became a truck driver. He appeared in the 2015 documentary. He's gone to a few events, but he's kind of lived a more quiet life. Kenny Peterson left the area. He's appeared in a couple documentaries. He showed up on the Fox's Moment of Truth, but he also doesn't really stay in the limelight too much. Alan Dallas, so this was the guy that failed the polygraph test and was the one that everyone said was the hothead or whatever. I did mention that he was retested and vindicated in 1993 to prove that he did see the UFO. He actually passed away in 2010, sadly, but he went to his grave believing and still saying they saw a UFO that day that abducted Travis Walton. And then Dwayne Smith, and that was the Herman Munster type of guy. He changed his name and was never really heard from again. He did not want to be any part of this. He doesn't show up to anything. He was also the one, he was the newest crew member, didn't really know anybody. So that makes sense.
He's the one from Phoenix, or was that?
Yeah, he was the one from Phoenix. That was like 6'6". And he just, we don't even know what his name is now. I couldn't find anything about him. So he's hopefully living a good life, and it's all behind him now.
Yeah.
He got his, $2,500 from the National Enquirer and left. So that wraps up this story. I'll just do a quick conclusion about what I think, and then I'd love to hear what you think, Jessica. There's no way for us to know.
Of course not.
100%. I tend to side, and I spent hours looking at this.
Yeah, you're probably going to have a better feeling about it than me.
I'm not a UFO. Like I said at the beginning, I don't follow ufology or anything like that. I do believe there's other species out there, and I do believe they probably visit us. And it's even come out from the Pentagon, that aliens have been here and spacecraft. So
finally.
And I also like to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that the fact that Travis has gone through his life and taken so many polygraphs and has done so much to prove that he's telling the truth, he seems very credible. He doesn't seem to seek attention, really. He does the conferences, he does those things, but it doesn't feel like what I think someone who put a hoax. It doesn't.
It doesn't feel like reverend of a super expensive church.
Exactly.
Icky.
And so at the end of the day, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say I believe that it probably happened. Maybe he embellished a little bit about the UFO. Maybe he doesn't remember anything and he made up some of that stuff, and that's why it fits with the Heinlein stories. That's possible. Maybe it was really boring and he never woke up the whole time he was gone, and that wouldn't have made as good of a story. So maybe he embellished some things, but I don't see a reason to doubt him. I don't think the hoax stories prove anything to me, but it could be a hoax. But 7 people?
Nothing is definitive. It is way more people than would usually be involved in trying to
pull one over.
Yeah, pull one over someone's eyes.
And you'd have to have trust in Mike Rogers and your own brother to never rat you out.
Okay.
And there's money involved.
There is money involved. Okay, I do have a question. You brought up the National Enquirer $100,000.
Yes.
What happened to that then?
They didn't win the contest. They just got
win?
the $5,000. So Charlie, who was the second, hoax theory, believes
someone had to have submitted themselves to that.
So she believes that they didn't win the $100,000 prize because he failed that first polygraph test that Philip Klass says happened. And so she thinks their concession prize was the $5,000 because National Enquirer knew that it was fake, but they published it anyways.
Klassman, he said that there was an original polygraph just 4 or 5 days later, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that one is now missing.
Yes.
I'm sorry. How do you apply for said a $100,000 prize competition with National Enquirer 4 days after a dude who has been missing is returned?
Right.
And have an answer back? I don't see how any of that plays out.
No, I don't think so either. And also, if you think about it, National Enquirer could have set up this contest and said, we'll give $100,000 to anybody who can pass a polygraph test. And then they send their own polygraph test guy out and he says it's a hoax because they don't want to pay $100,000 to anyone. Who knows?
They got to pay somebody though.
I know, but all those sweepstakes and stuff, especially back in the 1970s, do you really think they paid that shit out? I mean, they probably paid an editor to write a story.
Yeah.
And they said that was the winner.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where my mind kind of goes to is it could have been, National Enquirer saying they failed just because they don't want to pay. And then they say, here's $5,000 instead.
I don't know. I'm conflicted, but it kind of reminds me of what we were talking about with NDEs.
How people dismiss
people's experiences. And just because we can't understand it, that doesn't mean that we should completely dismiss his experience. So I don't know where I stand, because I wasn't there. I can entertain all sides. That's all I can do. That's all I can do. And I feel like whether I were to be swayed one way or another, it would be having a conversation with Travis would be the ultimate determining factor.
He has a lot of people on his side that believe him.
That adds to his credibility to me.
Yeah.
Because if you could go kooky or you could do well, and he's doing well with it. He has a lot of support in this versus someone who's with a sign at the top of a building asking the aliens to take them back. You know what I'm saying?
and there's plenty of those out there. And we'll do some more abduction stories, I'm sure, in the next coming years or whatever. But this one was interesting. And like I said, I tend to believe him, but I don't know. He could have just pulled the wool over everyone's eyes, and he's a great actor. I don't know. Maybe that was his calling in life.
Kudos to him in both ways. I don't care.
Maybe we should give him an Oscar.
Whatever. He's created entertainment.
That's funny. I listened to the Generation Y podcast, and they had done the Travis Walton story. I think it was back in 2017. And that's what one of the guys concluded. He was like, well, either way, it was a good story, and he should make some money for writing a great story. And I was like, well, that's a good way to look at it too.
Well, then I guess he and I would agree.
Y'all should hang.
I guess Generation Y, I don't know what that is. Sorry, I'll find it.
It's a really good podcast.
Yeah? Cool.
Not that we want to suggest other podcasts. We want you to stay here, but
I think I'm always going to suggest a bunch of different things.
Yeah, let's support other good podcasts that are out there. With that, we've been talking a while, and this was fun doing something a little different.
It was different.
We are going into the UFO territory, and who knows where we'll go next. So come back and see. I would love if anyone out there has any kind of UFO or
I really want
abduction stories.
Please email us. Please. Rawr. We need more stories coming in.
We want stories. Yeah. We will have lab reports coming out every month, and we want to include your stories.
Yes.
And we can't wait to see what all you guys have been up to.
Yeah. And I think I mentioned this in a couple of social posts because it's smart. Some other podcasts have done this if they do listener stories. If you don't want us to say your name, then let us know. You can change the names, all that. Just, give us some instructions ahead of time. But email us at lucidlabpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Facebook,
TikTok,
Instagram, YouTube.
We're thinking about it at the same
you
time.
you can listen to us anywhere you get your podcasts. If you want to mail us something, it's P.O. Box 251, East Lake, Colorado 80614. Kendra will learn that someday.
Yeah, I always let Jessica say it because I don't know it.
Yes.
But also, we have a Patreon.
Yes.
Anything you can do, we'd love to see your support there.
Thank you.
Yes, we love you guys. And we're so happy with the following that we're building.
I love seeing all the different countries pop up.
Yes.
It's exciting to just see that. I'm like, I've never heard of that city or that country, and someone's listening to us.
Yes.
And hopefully someday we get to go everywhere too. So,
yes, we can't wait to plan
plans.
our tour.
Yeah.
We've got big plans. We're not going anywhere, so keep coming back. You never know what's gonna be our topic because we go everywhere. So
far we've like mashed them all together in some weird, stupid way.
Yeah.
I just realized at the end of this, we've done 2 in Arizona in the last. Hi, Arizona.
Arizona.
I mean, can you love us?
I mean, yeah. We need some more Arizona listeners. Thank you all. And in the meantime,
stay lucid.
bye.